The girl walks slowly down the long corridor, coughing heavily and simultaneously clutching the wound on her stomach. She feels like this could be her end, because the injury is very serious, and she has almost no strength to hold out for long. The young lady slides down onto the cold floor, feeling that she doesn't regret anything in life, because everything was not at all as she wanted. She was born the daughter of a maid, and people constantly reproached her for her dirty blood, giving her neither joy nor family warmth. Her father insisted that the only thing she could do for her family was to allow the marriage that fate had forced upon her to come true. Now the girl thinks about Duke Khalid and realizes that because she married him, nicknamed the embodiment of evil, her life has taken a new, dark turn. Everything around seems hellish, and she feels as if she is already plunging into eternal sleep, but at the same time tears are flowing down her cheeks. She wants to live, wants to feel freedom for at least a moment and do what she really wants, when suddenly someone bursts into the room. The girl notices Idris and thinks about how he found out about what happened, trying to understand who could have hurt her so much. She turns to Khalid, and the man quietly asks if she is in pain and if she wants to survive, as if offering a chance for salvation. The girl nods, and Khalid assures her that he can save her, drawing his sword from its sheath and asking if Idris believes him. She thinks about what it means to trust him, and after a moment says that she doesn't trust him at all yet. The man simply calmly states that from this moment on she should start trusting him, after which his sword makes a sharp swing. When the girl closes her eyes, he promises that they will meet again. A little later, she is already sitting in a chair, coming to her senses. The maid anxiously asks her mistress if everything is all right, and the main character waves her hand and assures that everything is fine, although inside she is a little worried. Idris realizes that the girl had a nightmare in which, after a year of married life with the Duke, she is attacked by an assassin and dies. The dream seems so real that she feels like red liquid is about to gush out of her stomach, and her heart is constricted with horror. The maid tries to calm her down, saying that it's natural because today is a wedding and that's why she's nervous. She carefully strokes her mistress's hair, assuring her that everything is ready, and today she will definitely outshine everyone with her beauty and grace. The Grand Archduke will certainly like her image, and he will definitely fall in love when he sees her in full growth, and the girl thinks, is this really so? She wonders if she is really beautiful, and considers what good is that beauty if she is still forced to get married. The girl thanks the maid, but then again remembers the terrible dream and involuntarily trembles from the remaining fear. However, she understands that this is just a dream, and there is no need to worry when another person enters the room. The main character recognizes Mr. Kai, and he says that he came for the half-breed, and confidence appears in her appearance. The maid carefully hides the mistress and reminds her that the ceremony is soon, and if he starts to misbehave, everything will have to be redone. The guy smirks and says that since she is the Duke's bride, he will not dare to touch her, demonstrating a slight insolence. The girl looks at him angrily, but he only adds that she better behave accordingly, without causing unnecessary problems. Idris understands that she needs to win the Archduke's favor for the sake of Beatrice's family, and the girl already foresees what awaits her if she fails to do so. He reminds her to try not to tarnish the family's reputation, and passes by, lightly brushing against her shoulder. The main character falls to the floor and realizes that it was done on purpose, and anger slowly rises within her. She thinks that someday she will be able to bring him to tears, and the maid asks again if the mistress is okay. The girl just nods, and the maid asks her not to cry because the wedding is very close, and she squeezes her hand too tightly. She asks what to do, and the main character claims that if she lightly powders her face and puts on a veil, everything will be invisible. A little later, the maid does everything properly and says that everything is ready and they arrive just in time. The girl agrees and leaves the room, feeling that the long-awaited moment has finally arrived. She heads towards the ceremony, realizing that she is now going to a wedding with the Archduke. As she enters the church, she notices a scene like something out of a dream, and her heart sinks slightly with fear. But at that moment, someone grabs her hand, and she turns around and sees the gentleman next to her. He only warns the girl to be prepared for trouble if she makes a mistake. The young lady bows slightly and continues walking, wondering why the feeling is strange. After sleeping, she has a feeling of déjà vu, as if she had already experienced all these events before. She comes to the conclusion that perhaps she is wrong, and now she just needs to impress the person next to her. In her dream, she could not answer the priest's question, but now the attention shifts to her. The Archduke takes her hand, and the priest asks if she is ready for eternal love with her chosen one, Khalid Ruin. The girl understands that this is already reality, and the situation is completely different from the dream. She also realizes that she will leave the house and live according to the will of that one, so she agrees by saying yes. After this, the priest pronounces them husband and wife. A little later, the young lady finds herself in the bathroom. The maid remarks that she has beautiful skin, and another adds that she is even afraid of leaving marks on it. The main character thanks them, after which they begin dressing her. One of the maids warns that the Archduke will soon arrive in the bridal chamber. Idris agrees and states that she will go there herself, thanking them for the work they have done. At this moment, someone comes in and notices that the girl hasn't fallen asleep yet. She turns around. In front of her is his lordship, who says that if she has already looked at everything, he is ready to leave. But the young lady notes that if it becomes known that there was no wedding night, her reputation as an archduchess will suffer greatly. The man agrees and says that they will follow the terms of the contract. Suddenly, the girl starts to take a shower, and the maid asks if everything is okay, because she is being supported. She realizes that it was just a hallucination and reassures them, saying that everything is fine, she was just thinking. One of the maids notices that they are very worried about their mistress, and it seems that the bathing can be completed. Another one hands over a nightgown, claiming that she has prepared comfortable clothes for the mistress. Idris recognizes it and realizes that it is the same nightgown from the nightmare. Same wedding, same bath with petals, but her belly remained intact. The pain is still there, and the young lady wonders if she has returned a year too early. She fears that the same thing awaits her in the bedroom and immediately rushes away, and the maid screams in shock. The young lady realizes that today is her first day here, but she remembers everything about the place in such detail that she can name the order and names of the portraits on the walls. Still, she wonders how she managed to return to the past. The maid, shocked, asks what happened and why she's so worried, promising to fix everything. The girl states that she needs to check something and asks them to understand that she doesn't care how she got there. This time, she definitely won't fall into eternal sleep, and as far as she remembers, the Archduke joined later. When she bursts into the room, the girl is surprised. The Archduke is already sitting on the bed. He asks if she has arrived, smiling, and notes that there is surprise on her face, as if he should not be here. The main character is shocked, wondering if something has changed, and greets his lordship with respect. However, the young man turns to Idris, reminding her that she is now his wife and should not treat him with such strict respect. The young lady agrees, and he turns around and asks him to change his address, to which she asks what the correct name for her is now. He replies that it is enough to call him simply Khalid, asking if she doesn't mind. The girl understands that previously he allowed her to call him by his name only a few months after her dream, and now she says that she doesn't mind. The guy asks her to say his name, and she does so. Khalid noted that this was indeed the case, and Idris felt a slight sense of excitement, as today was her first day in her new role. The girl admits that she also has mixed feelings and asks for forgiveness, and the young man adds that running is good for your health. He hopes that next time she will be more careful with her choice of clothes, to which the young lady promises to be more attentive. The Archduke jokingly says that when he thought about her, he wanted to punish everyone who saw her body, causing surprise in the heroine. The guy immediately adds that it was just a joke, and Idris realizes he rarely jokes. He slowly approaches the girl. He then takes her hand and leads her to the bed, causing slight surprise in the girl, who asks him to wait a little. But at that very moment, Khalid looms over her, and the heroine wonders if he is going to act right now. The guy just smiles and explains that she must be tired, and that the best thing to do now is just rest and go to bed. When he notices a bruise on her arm, he asks what happened, causing the girl to become slightly confused. The main character explains that the mark appeared before the wedding, and that the powder probably washed off during the bath, leaving a mark. She remembers squeezing her hand hard, which is what caused the mark, and now she thinks she might have accidentally hit something. The young man asks with a slight smile if she takes him for a fool, but he understands that trust has not yet been fully established. Khalid goes to the door and says that everything will change soon, wishing her good night, and the girl realizes that if he leaves, she will have to say the same. She understands that if it becomes known that their wedding night did not take place, her reputation as an archduchess could be greatly damaged. The Duke looks surprised and asks why she keeps bringing this up, then takes off his shirt without losing his confidence. The heroine realizes that she thought that everything was different now, but the reality turned out to be different, and she is surprised by the silence around her, opening her eyes. The Archduke notes that her concern for her reputation is somewhat old-fashioned, but serves as a compelling argument, demonstrating the seriousness of the situation. After which, he comes out into the hallway shirtless, and the young lady wonders if he realized that she was scared and decided to take care of her. She remembers trying to escape down the hallway and is surprised that Khalid is paying attention and acting differently than before. The next morning, the heroine hears a knock on the door and understands that someone wants to enter the room, preparing for a new day. The maids enter the room, greet her, and inform her that the Archduke is waiting for her in the dining room, adding a touch of concern. The main character is surprised, and when she finds herself in the dining room with the Duke, she thinks about how different the events are from yesterday. She wonders if it was all a dream, marveling at the changes that have occurred in such a short period of time. The girl asks if her Grace slept well, and Khalid turns to Idris, causing her slight confusion and surprise. The guy suggests that she call him by his first name, and adds that if she feels uncomfortable, she can choose the form of address herself, showing gentleness. She admits that it is still unusual to address him informally, but she will try to get used to it and call him Khalid, accepting his conditions. The Archduke agrees and says that they can then proceed to breakfast in peace, hoping that she will enjoy the food and the company. The heroine, watching the guy, is surprised by his smile, which had previously been so rare, and feels a slight warmth when they sit down at the table. She continues to reflect on how the people and atmosphere around her are changing, gradually immersing herself in a calm morning with Khalid. They begin to have breakfast together, and the heroine watches his every movement with interest, surprised by the changes in their relationship. The Archduke turned his attention to the young lady, asking if she had enjoyed the treat, and the girl mentally noted that it was a real delight for the taste buds. The guy was slightly surprised, but a slight smile quickly appeared on his face, as if he was glad of her words. Idris watched him with some shock, then tilted her head, trying to figure out what had made him smile like that. The young man only noticed that his wife was eating more, and the girl realized that she had never seen him smile for anyone before, including herself. He said that after the meal, Ethan would show her the castle, and the young lady thought to herself of the kindness he had been depriving her of since yesterday. The girl turned around, wondering if Ethan would really accompany her, knowing that he was Khalid's only benevolent assistant. Previously, most of the castle's inhabitants disliked her so much that her title of Archduchess meant almost nothing to them. The brunette turned to the young lady, explaining that he would have been happy to show her the castle himself, but he was busy with a lot of things, and the girl realized that there was no way to count on protection. The young man apologized, and the girl, smiling, wondered if these could really have been the Archduke's own words. Assessing the situation, she mentally replied that she understood everything, and noticed that he had never paid attention to her before. The guy said he was glad about this, and then their paths diverged for a while until the next meeting. A little later, the girl stopped in front of the mansion, and Ethan asked her about her impressions. She remarked that the beauty and tranquility of the castle were breathtaking, something that could not be found anywhere else in the empire. She felt at peace, and the Archduke's confidant smiled, explaining that he was glad to hear such words, since he was afraid that she might not like the castle because of the rumors. The Archduke may have appeared intimidating, but he was actually a kind and caring man. The girl thought about the rumors, but firmly decided not to pay attention to them. She remembered how her father had once brought a boy, declaring him to be his son, and in Khalid's, red eyes were considered a sign of the devil, which is why Khalid did not have the best reputation. The boy also made a significant contribution to the victory in the war, which gave rise to rumors about his demon possession to spread even faster. The young lady understood that such talk about eye color meant nothing and should not worry her. The young man said that he had faced bullying since childhood because of his red eyes, and his restraint only reinforced people's opinions of his peculiarities. The main character thought about how he had been bullied since childhood, and it reminded her of her own life. She noted to herself that, like her, he would not have known that he would be met with understanding and support. The young lady sensed that he was struggling, and realized that feelings of hopelessness had often accompanied him in the past. Ethan apologized for being too talkative and offered to show him another floor of the castle. The girl wondered if Khalid knew about her childhood and what she had gone through. Ethan told the Archduke that he had shown the castle to his wife. The man asked how the tour had gone, and Ethan replied that they had talked a little about him. The Archduke asked in amazement what she had said, and Ethan thought it would be better to simply admit that he had been worried about her opinion from the very beginning. The blonde noted that Her Highness was indifferent to rumors, and asked the Archduke if he did not consider her wise, since she did not allow gossip to deceive her. The Archduke remained silent, and the blonde decided that it was already late, and assumed that the girl was waiting for the master in the bedroom. The Archduke simply told the boy to stop talking nonsense and leave. When Idris left the room, the Duke quietly said his wife's name. A little embarrassed, he noted to himself that he should visit her, because now he had a chance to see her again. Soon the man entered her room. He thought the girl was sleeping, but she was getting ready to rest. The man noticed that the tour of the castle had tired her and suggested that she lie down. He also asked if she was afraid of him, and the young lady admitted that she was a little, wondering the reason for it. Idris noted that he was a person to be feared, but the man said that there was no need to be afraid. The girl wondered why he continued to keep that face. Khalid assured her that he had never done anything that could frighten her. On the contrary, he always tried to protect her, after which he asked Idris to rest. The young lady wondered what exactly the Archduke meant, since she had survived a fatal wound. The next morning she smelled the scent of flowers when she opened her eyes. Before her were black flowers with a rich aroma, symbolizing eternal affection, and the girl was amazed by their beauty. She realized that this was sent from the cold-blooded Archduke, and felt a little embarrassed. But she soon realized that he might have simply sent flowers without anticipating her reaction, and the maid approached the mistress. She wonders in surprise if this message is really from his lordship, since the color matches the lady's hair. And she notices that his lordship is clearly a romantic, because one can immediately sense that there is a special magic hidden in his words that can bewitch any woman, and Anna understands that he really is such a person. But then the girl becomes a little embarrassed and feels that her behavior was unforgivable. The main character turns to Elsa, explaining that she doesn't know how it is in other places, but now she is in Kaltes, and it is important for her to watch her manners and words. The maid, meanwhile, only asks the mistress to give a command, or asks whether flowers need to be put in a vase. After this, the main character smiles, confirming the request, but then her gaze falls on something else lying on the bed. She asks herself what it could be and whether it is really from the Duke, after which she carefully takes the postcard. Opening it, the girl sees an invitation to go somewhere, as well as an indication that the Archduke will pick her up at exactly 1 o'clock. In shock, the main character wonders if Khaled, who has never invited her anywhere before, will really come, and she wants to understand what happened. The maid replies that the mistress was probably invited on a date and points to a bouquet of flowers. She adds that the Archduke himself sent these flowers, and in her opinion, this is definitely a romantic invitation, which the girl finds wonderful. The main character thinks that if the card and roses were from someone else, she would have thoughts similar to those of Elsa. But Khalid is not one of those people. At this point, the maid turns to her mistress and remarks that the founding day of Kaltes is approaching. She suggests that perhaps the Archduke wants to prepare for the ball with her. Idris wonders, surprised, if His Highness truly intends to do so. The maid confirms and adds that the girl does not have a suitable dress for such an event, and why not discuss it with the Archduke today? The girl realizes that Elsa is right, and she doesn't have a suitable outfit for such a celebration. In her family, only the master's wife's old clothes were allowed to be worn. That's why all her dresses have long gone out of fashion. And these people hated her so much that there was no talk of spending money on her. Because of this, he and Elsa had had an extremely difficult time finding anything suitable in the past. This time, the girl has a strong feeling that everything will be different. A little later, she informs her mistress that everything is ready. Looking at the mistress, the maid beams, and the Archduke himself enters the room. He turns to Iris, then approaches the girl, kisses her hand, and says that she is beautiful as always. The main character is slightly embarrassed, turns around, and thinks that it's time for them to go. The man confirms that they need to go and tells them that there will be a festive ball in a few days, and he wants to pick out outfits for them. Looking at her husband, the girl thinks how handsome he is. She shakes her head in shock, wondering how she can even think about such things. The young man asks Idris if she likes cultists. The girl replies that the country is very beautiful. He asks if she likes people and if they have been rude to her. The main character realizes that no one has ever cared about her opinion, except Elsa. With a smile on her face, she replies that she likes everything, and everyone is very kind to her. The Archduke smiles and claims that this is how it should be, since he ordered it that way. The girl is a little surprised and wonders what he is talking about. After a while, they find themselves in front of Madame Redmond's boutique, and the young lady is amazed by its scale. She understands that Madame Redmond is demanding and treats aristocrats strictly, based on her own impressions. Besides, her dresses are expensive even for high society. The main character realizes that she would be happy to just get a new dress, and not the Duchess's old rags. At this point, the Duke decisively tells her to stop thinking and just walk with him. He takes her hand, and they head toward their destination. The boutique's owner greets them at the door, expressing joy and respect for the visit of the Archduke and Archduchess, as she had long been awaiting their arrival. At this point, Khalid turns to the girl, asking if she likes the place and if it makes an impression on her. He chose this particular boutique because it was a favorite hangout for high society members, and he wanted to show her a place popular among aristocrats. The main character is shocked when she thinks about what he just said and is amazed at how much money and jewelry he must have to afford this. When thinking about shopping at Redmond's, she replies that she doesn't know anything about clothes and doesn't need anything like that. Soon they begin to try her on, and Ms. Redmond asks if she already has a preference for the style or color of the dress, promising to fulfill any wish. The Archduke intervenes, ordering them to show all the dresses in her size and stop asking for details, after which the woman immediately agrees and promises to fulfill his request. Luxurious outfits appear in the boutique, and the heroine says with surprise that she won't be able to try on everything at once to choose the right one. The man agrees with her and points to one dress, declaring that it is the perfect option, and decides to buy the rest himself. The main character looks at him in surprise, and the boutique owner is in complete shock from such a sudden decision. The girl turns to the Duke, assuring him that he does not need to spend so much, realizing that they could spend a fortune. Khalid explains that his assistant will handle the payment and asks that everything be delivered to the palace by the next day so as not to delay the purchases. The boutique owner agrees, and the heroine asks Khalid to wait so he can calm down a bit and come to his senses. When he gets into the carriage, the girl remarks that she only expected to pick out outfits to suit her taste and not to buy everything in a row. The Archduke explains that the ball is in a few days, and so he had to act quickly, promising to choose clothes to suit her taste next time. The girl is shocked, thinking that this is not the end, and understands that she will hardly have time to try on all the dresses bought today. She wonders if Khalid always lived such a luxurious life, realizing that he never spent money on trifles and unnecessary things. The girl wonders why he is so attentive to her, because all these expenses do not bring him any benefit. The Archduke explains that he is doing this because she deserves to be treated this way, and takes her hand again. He assures her that he will allow her to fulfill all her desires, and Idris feels slightly embarrassed by such care and attention. The girl wonders if he means that he is ready to do everything for her, and realizes that this is almost a confession. Embarrassment makes her turn away, trying to hide the emotions and confusion caused by Khalid's words. But suddenly her stomach starts to rumble, and she wonders why this is happening at this particular moment. The girl feels ashamed, and the Archduke politely asks if she is hungry, to which Idris explains that she went to bed late yesterday and did not have time to have breakfast today. Khalid asks worriedly if she couldn't sleep, and the girl secretly notices how closely he is watching her. She considers that if she tells him the truth, that she couldn't sleep because of his words, it might look like she has feelings for him. So Idris decides to simply say that she didn't get enough sleep because of the nightmare, trying to remain neutral and not show her emotions. The girl apologizes for disturbing her, and the man asks what kind of nightmare exactly disturbed her. The young lady wondered what had happened to him, and felt that something had died inside her. The girl realized that she had spoken these words in vain, and now it seemed to her that she should not have talked about it. The young man then insisted that this was impossible, since she was obliged to remember everything that happened. The main character wondered if he had said anything else, to which the guy simply replied that nothing had happened and asked if anything from the nightmare remained. The girl explained that, no, nothing special happened, it was just a bad dream that shouldn't be disturbed. The Archduke sighed deeply and admitted that perhaps that was true, adding that he hoped such nightly torments would no longer trouble her. The young lady thanked Khalid and suggested that perhaps she was not yet accustomed to the new bed and surroundings. The man advised her not to be shy and to share any discomfort if something was bothering her. He noticed that they had become so talkative that the girl was probably hungry and suggested that they eat first before continuing. After some time, the girl was already sitting at an exquisite table and was amazed at how appetizing the dishes looked in front of her. The Duke handed her a piece of meat and told her to eat more so that she would not remain hungry. The main character opened her mouth and felt slightly embarrassed, not used to such attention. However, when she tried the dish, all her worries retreated, and it became important for her only to enjoy the taste, fully concentrating on the meal. The young lady invited the Duke to try some too, as the food was incredibly delicious, but he replied that he had already eaten and everything was fine. He added that if she liked it, that was enough, and the girl thought about how she was used to always managing and taking care of herself. Then the young lady noticed someone looking at her and thought that the cook shouldn't worry. The dish was so delicious that she couldn't stop admiring it. The man admitted that it was a great honor for him to hear praise from her ladyship, and it filled the atmosphere with warmth. The main character felt genuine happiness from the opportunity to try such an exquisite dish, enjoying every moment. But after a little while she was in shock, looking at the cook and wondering how the man from yesterday's restaurant ended up here. The girl looked at the luxurious table and turned to Khalid, asking if something was wrong, because this man was surprisingly similar to yesterday's cook, and it seemed to her that she was mistaken. The Archduke confirmed that the girl was right, and then the young lady tried to understand what this meant and why it happened. The guy explained that she liked his dishes so much that he decided to invite the chef here so that she could enjoy them again. The girl was shocked, not understanding why she would invite a man with his own stable business, who probably wasn't thrilled with such changes. However, since this was the Archduke's palace, any difficulties and fears of the cook now had meaning and justification. The man again approached the young lady and asked her how she had enjoyed her breakfast today, and she thanked Khalid, finding his action extremely sweet and thoughtful. The Duke smiled back and said that it was nothing, and that it was enough for him to see her happiness to rejoice himself. The young lady thought to herself that this man, who was once stern and severe, was now showing a completely different side, and her heart felt a change. The girl turned around and realized that something in her feelings had changed, and now she saw him completely differently. Now she should think about her safety, after which she continues her meal. A little while later, she is already heading somewhere with the Archduke, and the man turns to Idris. He also asks why they don't practice their dancing a little. The young lady then replies that the ball is already so soon, and he agrees and says it's worth a try. A little while later, the young lady is already changing. Then the Archduke approaches her and asks if she is ready. The young lady then replies that she is, and the guy claims that the first dance will be slow and they will dance leisurely, after which they start dancing. And the young man says that it is excellent and Idris is doing well. When a young woman approaches a guy, she feels a little shy and thinks she's so close to his chest. But he probably feels uncomfortable, so he needs to pull away, after which the young lady wants to do it but suddenly stumbles and begins to fall. The young lady also thinks that she is about to fall. However, the Duke at that very moment grabs her hand and tells her to be careful. But Idris only accidentally steps on his foot. Afterwards, the young lady apologizes and asks how she could have done that, since she stepped on his foot, and wonders if the guy is angry. At this time, the young man asks if she feels uncomfortable with him, and why she is so worried. The main character wants to say something, but at that very moment the guy pulls her closer to him. He claims he doesn't know what's bothering her, but he'll always support her. Idris understands she's not uncomfortable around him, and now she only claims it's all out of trepidation. The girl realized she was in love with Khalid, and his kindness also tenderly made her so. The Archduke at this point is only slightly embarrassed, after which they hear each other's heartbeats. However, the man only turns around and suggests they leave it at that. Idris wonders if it was because she stepped on his foot, or because she dances terribly. but she just wanted to be with him longer. At this time, the Duke only runs into his room, after which he hits his head. He is also very embarrassed, and understands that if he had gone a little further, he would not have been able to restrain himself. But he was so happy that she accepted his proposal and was as happy as a child. And besides, he didn't notice her mistakes at all, and how she stepped on his foot. After all, it seemed that he would burst from the overwhelming emotions due to those clear eyes. They also understand that he simply cannot control himself, and this is dangerous. A little while later, the main character sits at the table and thinks that the time has come, and if you think about it, she has not met Khalid since dance practice. But she made so many mistakes, and that was enough to ruin his mood. So the girl also thinks what will happen if he starts treating her like he did in the past. But then she shakes her head and thinks that this won't work, and she also needs to go and apologize to him. After all, she is sure that the guy will no longer be as terrible as before, and yet he is kind to her. After which, the young lady heads to the door and realizes that she won't dare to just enter his room. At this point, the Archduke's aide addresses Her Highness and greets her. He also asks if she will come in, as he thinks His Highness will be pleased to see her. The main character then asks if this is true and hesitates a little, and Ethan asks what happened and if she has any problems. He says that he wants to help her, and the girl then claims that he wants to be honest and tells the whole situation. The young man then just laughs and claims that he doesn't think the gentleman could have been angered by the fact that she stepped on his foot. The girl then claims she didn't hear that many have been plunged into eternal sleep due to such missteps. Ethan insists that rumors are often untrue, and still his lordship loves the girl, and he wouldn't be angry about something like that. The main character then asks, a little surprised, if his lordship really loves her, and the guy smiles and claims that it seemed obvious to him, and let the young lady be sure that she deserves his love. After which the young lady realizes that she is hearing such words for the first time in her life. And this is not surprising, because the count called her pathetic, and also repeated that she should not have been born. So it seems her heart was filled with something, and then the young lady highlights her eyes, and Ethan says that then he will go after, which the young lady thanks him. And he takes hold of the door handle, and also says that since Ethan says that Khalid will be happy, then most likely it is so. Then the young lady enters the room, and the Duke claims that he already said that he was busy, and if he rested he could do something useful. After which he asks why he doesn't answer. However, when he sees the young lady, he is shocked. After which he looks at the girl with tears in his eyes and asks if this is really Idris. The girl then claims that she sees that he has taken a and also that she did not want to interfere. The young lady understands that she still went in, trusting Ethan, and Khalid has his hands full there, so now she apologizes. The young man says no, he just finished, so he's not busy at all. But when he gets up from the table, he also knocks over a stack of documents. And the main character, seeing this, says that they fell, but the young man claims that everything is fine and later he will pick them up, and also asks why the young lady came to him. The girl claims that she just wanted to apologize, after which the young man is a little surprised, and the main character apologizes to him, and the guy claims that he doesn't understand her. The young lady claims that she always made mistakes during the dance, and the Duke then only says that this is what she meant, and the young lady needn't worry about that. But the main character asks if he left because she angered him, and the guy says nothing of the sort, so she shouldn't worry. And he also asks if she came only for this, after which the young lady states that it has long seemed that she is at the wrong time. The girl also picks up the documents from the floor and apologizes, and also claims that she distracted him from work, after which she hands over the documents from the Duke and says that she will go then, and also thanks him for the reception. However, the guy only takes her hand and tells the young lady not to leave. After all, not only is he not busy, but he also doesn't think that she's bothering him and, on the contrary, is very glad that she came to him, so he invites her to stay there a little longer and have some tea. The young lady then thanks him and declares that she would gladly accept his offer. A little while later, the girl is already sitting in front of a cup of tea and wondering if she is really trying tea, prepared personally by Khalid. But she felt as if she had found herself at an unscheduled tea party. At this time, the guy only claims that his departure is in any case not because of her, so let the girl not understand it wrong. The main character then says that this is good, and the young man claims that he will never get angry with her. A little while later, the ball in honor of Kaltes finally arrived, and one of the maids claims that everything is ready. She also says with a sparkling smile that Madame Redmond's dresses are different from others, and that it is very beautiful. The main character then thanks the maid and says that she did a great job. After which, he thinks that Khalid would be of the same opinion, but he most likely won't notice. Well then, the young lady thinks that one should not expect too much. After all, he is a great archduke. And she shouldn't have false expectations, and the girl also thinks about what she's even thinking about. At this time, the maid states that the time has come and she wishes the mistress to have a wonderful day today. The main character then says that she definitely leaves the room after that, but there she sees. Khalida asks if the girl is there. The young lady then wonders if they'll really go right away, and the guy just takes her hand and then they head there, but suddenly they freeze. The main character then wonders what happened, and the Archduke just turns to her, and he says that Idris is beautiful and she is always beautiful, but today she is even more so. The main character then becomes embarrassed, and says that he looks amazing, after which the Duke, with a smile on his face, thanks her for the compliment. A short time later, they enter the hall, and someone announces that His Serene Highness Archduke Khalid and Archduchess Idris have arrived. The main character thinks that, as expected, she feels their gaze and there are a lot of people there. And it's scary to stop because of this, but when a girl looks at her husband, she wonders if he's really smiling. But it seems like he's in a good mood. At this time, the aristocrats are whispering among themselves, and one of them asks why the Archduke looks so pleased, and the woman replies that perhaps all this is for her highness. The man then claims he heard the girl is a servant's daughter, and wonders if she really became an archduchess. He's afraid this will damage the Archduke's reputation, but the girl tries to match him, judging by his expression. The main character understands that she knew that they would whisper about her, and she was glad that she finally got out of the county, but now everything seems to be repeating itself. However, the Archduke then turns menacingly to these people and claims that he did not hear, and why don't they come out and say everything to their faces, instead of whispering like rats. The main character is a little surprised after this, and the guy takes a knife from the table and says that this is so strange, and also asks why everyone has become silent. But just now they tried to humiliate Idris with obscene speeches about honor. He also turns to the aristocrat who was whispering and asks if he knows that even such a small knife can easily cause damage. And he dared to insult his wife, so the Archduke asks if he would mind if he cuts off something from him. The main character then puts her hand on her husband's shoulder and says that today is the founding day of Kaltes. If red liquid spills on such an auspicious day, it means that many people, including her, will not be able to enjoy the ball. The girl also claims that she is completely fine, so she hopes that he will have fun with her. The Archduke then turns to the young lady, a little surprised, and she thinks that she did the right thing. After which her husband says that it's fine, and if it's her will, then he won't touch them. And while we're at it, he asks the musicians to play something for his wife, and asks if it's possible. The man in charge of the music replies yes, of course, after which the Archduke says that it is excellent, and he tells them to start playing music, because the ball is starting. After which he and his wife clink champagne glasses. The main character smiles after this, and the Archduke asks if he can consider this look a good sign. The main character then asks what he is talking about, and the guy replies that he is talking about the fact that she likes him so much that she will only dance with him. It makes her happy. The girl is a little surprised after this, and then her heart starts beating faster and louder. The young lady then tries to say something, but at that very moment someone addresses his lordship. The man then turns to the aristocrat and tells him to leave. The protagonist then turns to Khalid and suggests they postpone their conversation. The aristocrats are shocked, wondering if the girl really just addressed the Archduke by name. Idris claims that she has a couple of questions, but he should not neglect his relations with his subjects, so she will go and talk to the others. The Archduke then agrees and heads toward his subjects. Meanwhile, the young lady takes the glass in her hands, and she stands near the wall. She realizes that she knows the guy's attitude towards her seems strange, because politeness and good nature did not suit his image at all, and she wanted to ask him a few questions. She also wants to know why he continues to excite her heart and ask him about changes in his behavior. and also the words before she plunged into eternal sleep and about returning to the past. But every time she tries to utter a word, she is overcome with fear. And she is afraid that the guy's kindness towards her will disappear and that he will simply change. But now that she has realized that she really likes Khalid, she can no longer put off this conversation, and so she will definitely ask today. Well, then someone approaches the young lady and asks if this is the Archduchess. The main character then asks what he needs and understands that he did not bother to greet her, although his status is still lower than hers. The young man then says that it was nothing, and he was just curious, and he also apologizes for being rude. The main character realizes that this is Harold Florent, and this guy is a descendant of the Florents, who are an influential family in Kaltez, and he has always hated her. Harold is a proud son of a respected family, and he simply could not accept her being a half-breed. At this time, the young man, with a smile on his face, says that there is nothing special about the young lady, and that it may be because of the inheritance. The main character understands that he is mocking her origins, but if she gets angry at the eldest son of an influential family, then only she will be in trouble, and now the girl is squeezing her hand, just like at that moment before the wedding. She says that, just like her, she doesn't know what makes him laugh so much, but if the guy came to say meaningless things. However, at that very moment, someone else addresses Mr. Florent. It turns out to be Ethan, and he says he knew the boy was uneducated, but he never imagined things would be this bad. He also inquires about this attitude toward her ladyship, but Harold just gets angry and says how unpleasant it is for him. But he didn't say anything like that. But the knight says that those around him may misunderstand his attitude towards her ladyship. The young man just sighs and says, well, that's it. Then he turns around and says it's time for him to go. However, the knight asks if he's going to apologize. The boy insists that he seems to have overdone it, and he apologizes to her ladyship. Idris understands that no one has apologized to her in the past, and that's probably enough. However, the knight only claims that this is simply ridiculous, and asks if this is all, and he is interested in whether the son of Florence is indifferent to the manners of Cultis. And it's immediately obvious from his actions. Harold then asks what the guy just said. However, the Archduke's confidant only comes up to him and says that if the guy doesn't want bad rumors to circulate about him, that is the way to apologize properly, because he is the Archduke's only assistant. The young man then bows and asks for forgiveness from her ladyship, and also claims that he treated her very disrespectfully because of his short-sightedness, and did not mean to do this, so he asks for forgiveness. The main character claims that she will not hold a grudge against him, so let him join. Idris also understands that it was she who always bowed in front of everyone, and Ethan at this time claims that he cannot believe that she so easily forgave such a rude person, and he says the girl is very kind, even too kind to such people. The main character claims she knew many nobles didn't like her, after which she smiles and still thanks Ethan because she feels much better. Ethan also tells the girl to contact him if she has any problems, as he's always ready to help. The young lady then says this warms her heart and thanks him for his concern. When the girl goes out onto the balcony, she realizes that the music has stopped and it seems the ball has come to an end. Then she also notices someone coming onto her balcony and turning around, after which she sees that it is the Duke. The guy then approaches the young lady, and he says that he wanted to be with her. He also turns to his little wife and says, Koules. He was very curious about what she wanted to ask him, and he couldn't think of anything else apart from that. He asks her what her question is. She replies that she wanted to know why he treats her this way. And why does he act as if he likes her? Or is it just a game that interests her? The girl also claims that he was not like this in the past, and the guy asks what she means by the past. And does he really say he remembers everything? The girl then asks if that means he knows anything, and the young man claims that this cannot be, and also asks up to what point she has memories. The main character then wonders if he really remembers everything, and that's why she asks this question. After which she claims that from the day of their wedding until they plunge into eternal sleep. The young man then goes into shock, puts his hand on his forehead and swears. He also claims that he did not expect such an outcome, and wonders why she did not say so right away. The girl replies that she wasn't sure whether her return to the past was connected to the snow, or maybe it's just a whim of God, but she is finally convinced that he saved her life. The young man then clenches his fists and turns to Idris and claims that this is not true, because he plunged her into a crippling sleep. And she knows about it, but the young lady at that very moment embraces the Archduke, and she insists that no, it was the hand of an assassin. At that moment, she was inflicted with a wound that threatened her life, and her soul was barely clinging to her body, which was on the verge of falling into eternal sleep. The girl also understands that she, of course, blamed Khalid for his heartlessness, but not for her descent into eternal sleep. That's why the young lady now claims that even without him, she would still have ended up in eternal sleep. However, the guy replies that this is not true, and that he took her life and contributed to this. He also claims that he caused her terrible pain and that it was difficult for her. However, the main character, he insists she's truly fine. She understands this is because she went through pain and suffering long before she married him. And now she claims that everything is fine, and the Archduke, with tears in his eyes, claims that he thought so. That she was ignorant, and therefore wanted to start all over again so that everything would exist for her. The girl then turns to Khalid and states that she wanted to ask him, did he turn back time? The guy replies that yes, that's right, and the girl asks how that's possible. After all, even the books don't explain it. The young man then sighs and asserts that there's no point in hiding it any longer. After all, she is right, and no one would dare to touch the time after which he is interested. Does the girl believe in the existence of the devil? The main character is then shocked and wonders why he's asking such a question. But the devils destroyed each other because of their unique warlike nature. Their love of battle and the red liquid forced them to plunge everyone, without exception, into eternal sleep, and the survivors returned to the underworld. And they could no longer be found on Earth, so now the girl claims that she thought they have already disappeared from the face of the earth. However, the guy replies that no, and stands in front of her, a creature with red devil liquid, after which the young lady gets scared and asks what he means. And the guy asks if she knows what people call these scarlet eyes, and they claim that this is a devilish symbol. The girl then smiles and claims that it is just superstition. However, the guy claims that it is not for him, and they remind him of his essence. His father had an affair with a she-devil, and she ended up abandoning him on Earth and returning to the underworld. His father, however, had no plans to raise him and had no choice but to bring him to his estate. So now he asks if the girl knows that the devil's red liquid is imbued with a power that a person cannot possess. The main character then asks in shock if this is the ability with which he turned back time. And the guy replies that, yes, and he could only do that once. The young lady then thinks that this can't be true and that he's lying. After which she claims that if this is true, then how come she remembers everything? The guys claim that she spent every night with him, and apparently his energy affected her, and he had too little strength to dispel it. The guy claims that he has the blood of both man and devil in him, which is why he has very limited abilities. He also asks if Idris hates him for saving her life. The girl then realizes that she wanted to live. From the moment the assassin wounded her, the same thing happened when Khalid asked her, does she want this? And she had such a miserable life that she was ready to give up at any moment, but in the end she desperately clung to it. And this is her life, so now the girl claims she's not angry with him. She also understands that she's endured various kinds of humiliation and can't give up. After which he takes the Archduke by the hand and asserts that even if he were a real devil, she would still ask him for help. And she longed to live even with broken bones, so now she claims that Khalid saved her. At this time, the guy asks if she doesn't regret marrying a monster, and even if he turned back time to make her happy, he remains only a monster. However, the main character then asks why he turned back time for her, and he despised her and did not want to see her. The young man replies that this is not true, and he did not avoid meeting her, but on the contrary, he loved her very much. The girl then asks in shock what this means, and the guy replies that of course he didn't want this marriage. But the only thing he longed for from his past life was Idris. One day, Ethan approached the master and suggested they take a look at the latest candidate. He also claimed that he had already found a bride, and His Highness had no choice but to accept. The Archduke then said that by her appearance, he wouldn't say this girl wanted to marry him. Ethan said it couldn't be Togo, since her family was really hoping for this marriage. The Archduke wondered if she was sacrificing herself for her family. There had been no public engagement between the two, and it all happened in the blink of an eye. Khalid was only able to see Idris on the wedding day. The priest then asked if the girl swears eternal love to Khalid ruin. The heroine replied that, yes, the Duke merely sighed. That same evening, when their wedding night was supposed to be, the girl only shook, and the Archduke thought that he would better return when she fell asleep. And the young lady then turned to his lordship and asked him to wait, in case it became known that they had not had their wedding night. Her reputation as an archduchess would plummet. The man only sighed and said, "Good," and they will follow the contract. He also noticed a bruise on the young lady's arm and wondered if it was because of him. It must have hurt her, but there's no room for emotion in a marriage of convenience. However, over time, the Archduke was forced to change his mind, and all thanks to Idris. When it was cold, the young lady would bring him a warming stone, and at first her kindness was questioned. One day, the girl came to his lordship and brought tea, and also claimed that it was made from tea leaves that grow only in the places where she lived. She also heard that this tea is especially good for relieving retardation, so it might help him. The man wondered if the young lady was trying to poison him, and that it was very bold of her. But if you think about it, Idris was honest and kind, and always tried to fulfill her marital duties. But for Khalid, for someone accustomed to receiving only hatred and threats from those around him, her favor seemed unimaginable. The guy then took the tea in his hand and said how sweet it was, and he'd also be happy to drink it. The tea was quite hot, but at the same time very sweet, and there was no poison in it. After this incident, Idris began to occupy his thoughts more and more often. And when he came to his senses, Khalid often caught his gaze on her and unconsciously remembered all her movements, and also played them over in his head. One day, the boy noticed a young lady in the hallway, and she asked if Elsa was in any pain, as she didn't look well. The maid then replied that no, she simply had a cold. However, the main character asked if she was sure, and she needed to see a doctor, so she suggested going to see him together later. The girl was very different from the Archduke, and a fleeting interest soon turned into deep feelings. Among the people who considered him a monster, Idris was the only one who saw him as a human being, and Khalid fell in love with her. Idris's voice was so sweet, and the boy paid attention to her every movement. But despite his deep feelings, Khalid expressed them extremely awkwardly. One day, he discovered that the girls liked flowers, and he decorated the entire palace with them. For this reason alone, he cleared the empty courtyard and planted a multitude of flowers in it. Idris, who practically owned the garden, only visited it occasionally and thought that it was a pity that it was not all hers. One day, a girl fell, tripping over a door threshold, and Khalid immediately got rid of all the thresholds in the palace. However, he did not feel any better, so he visited Idris, who had sprained her ankle, and also asked how her leg was. The girl replied that everything was fine and she hadn't been hurt. The guy then asked if her shoes were comfortable. The young lady simply insisted that all aristocrats wear shoes. The man then turned around and said, "What kind of nonsense is that? But if she's gonna fall like that every time, then she'd better not wear them at all." The young lady then asked for forgiveness and claimed that she did not mean to make him look bad by her fall, and that she would be careful in the future, and that such a thing would not happen again. He also told the girl to live the way she wanted, and that Idris could throw lavish parties in the palace every day, or buy a whole cartload of jewelry or a mountain of dresses. Khalid worked hard and had plenty of money. He also wanted Idris to live the way she wanted, but she would only buy what she considered necessary and never spend money on anything unnecessary. The man then screamed that he had said that she could live as she wanted. However, this only frightened the young lady, and she asked if she had done something wrong. The man was a little surprised after this and asked what she was talking about, and the girl answered his lordship. That's okay. And the guy said that if she was homesick, she should just say so, because they could go there anytime. However, the girl said that she would never do that, and then she insisted that everything was fine and he didn't have to worry about her. The guy then realized that it seemed that Idris had set boundaries between them, and in the end he began to distance himself from her as she wanted. He used to be busy at work, but sometimes he would still run into her by chance. Well, soon he stopped doing even this and no longer approached her, because that was her desire. One day, while looking through Khalid's papers, he felt Idris's energy suddenly and very quickly begin to disappear, after which he started running. realizing that this couldn't be happening. Then he saw a young lady with a wound on her stomach, and after those events, he claimed that in the next life he would try to gain her trust. He understood that he could start everything from scratch so that everything existed only for her. Now the young lady turns to Khalid and claims that he once asked her if she regretted marrying a monster, after which she wonders if he will start avoiding her like in the past if she tells him not to approach her. However, the guy replies that no way, and he'll do whatever her heart desires. After all, if she wants power, she can use him. And for her sake, he's willing to start a war, put his uncle into a crippling sleep, and grant her the throne. The girl replies that she doesn't want this, and the boy asks what she wants then. And the young lady replies that she just wants him to be next to her, so that's enough for her, and she doesn't feel sorry for the kind monster. After which she says that Khalid should stay with her, because that is all she wants. That same evening, the girl lies down on the bed and sighs heavily, and also understands that this is not one-sided love but mutual, after which he becomes very embarrassed. The girl cannot believe that her beloved has the same feelings for her, and it is already late at night, but she hopes that he will come. But then the young lady droops a little. The Archduke, meanwhile, is in his office and sighs. He also thinks about Idris, and remembers the words that she just wants him to be near her, so a kind monster is enough for her. And the girl also asked him to stay with her, and also claimed that this is all she wants. Now the man understands that this means that this is not one-sided love, and it's mutual. After which the Duke just bangs his head on the table. A little while later, he enters Idris's room, but then he sees that she's sleeping. He smiles and approaches the girl, telling her how beautiful she is and stroking her hair. But then he clenches his fists and thinks, this won't do. The next morning, the young lady wakes up, after which he touches the bed next to him and understands that, judging by the fact that it is cold, Khalid did not come there. And just yesterday, he said that he loved her and would do whatever she wanted, but he never visited her chambers. So the young lady wonders whether he was telling the truth or lying. Well, the girl also thinks he might have been very busy. Then he turns to Elsa and asks if she'll help her. The maid agrees and wishes her ladyship a good morning. The girl then realizes she'll meet Khalid in the hall, so she needs to hurry. But a little while later, when she comes into the hall, the maid claims that the Archduke announced that he would miss today's breakfast. The main character then asks where he is now, and the maid replies that his lordship was working until recently and went out into the garden for a short while. The main character then realizes that she has the feeling that he is avoiding her, but she desperately wants to see him. That's why now she claims to eat a little later, and she's wondering why he's avoiding her. After which the girl goes to the garden and is surprised, and also understands that Khalid had improved the garden in the past, but this was much later than their wedding. So the young lady thinks why he prepared all this so early, but then thinks that it's nothing, and she will often come there with Elsa. Then the wind blows in the garden, and the young lady closes her eyes a little, but he also sees the Archduke there, and then addresses him. Khalid then asks if it's Idris, and the girl comes closer to him, and the Archduke claims that in case she wanted to look around there and he was in the way. However, the girl interrupts him and claims that everything is not so, and that she also came to him and looked for him. The guy then asks if she was looking for him and if she wants to tell him anything. The young lady merely wonders why he didn't spend the night with her or come to breakfast. Afterwards, she wonders if she's being too blunt. The guy just turns around and claims he was busy. The young lady then realizes he's behaved similarly in the past, and now he's saying exactly that. She also understands that Khalid is the Lord of Khaltis, and in their contractual relationship, it is better to stay away from each other because, as expected, she was mistaken about his feelings. The guy at this time comes a little closer to her and claims that apparently his wife was lonely, after which he asks if she missed him. The girl then gets a little embarrassed and says that she is just, but the guy asks her to stop acting so sweetly, otherwise he might misunderstand. The young lady then asks what he is talking about and whether he will misunderstand her. However, the guy only claims that if she continues to behave this way, he will think that she likes him. The main character then grabs his hand and claims that this duke is not mistaken. It's true, after all. Razratok then grabs the young lady by the shoulders and tells her to repeat her words. The girl tells him again that she likes him. The guy becomes very embarrassed, and the young lady insists that since she told him the truth, he should share his. And yesterday he confessed to her, and today he pretended as if nothing had happened, and she was no longer sure of his words. So he asks her to be honest with him. The brunette then turns to Idris, and he says he loves her more than anything in the world. The main character also feels embarrassed after this, after which they move away from each other a little, and the young lady turns to Khalid. She also asks why he's suddenly taken up flower gardening. Hey, honestly, she's wondered about that before, and she thought he didn't like flowers. Khalid replies that she's right and he didn't really like them, after which the young lady asks why then. The boy replies that he created this place for her. The main character then asks if this is true, and he created this just for her without any reason. Khalid asks why she thinks that it is without reason, since she herself is the most compelling reason. He also heard from Ethan that the girl adores flowers, and she was sad that there were none at all in the castle. The main character then remembers how she said that Kaltis is a wonderful place, and it's a pity that flowers don't grow in the palace. The Archduke claims that he is not a fan of flowers, but if a few buds make a young lady happy, he will plant 1,000 for her. After which he hands the rose to the girl and says that because her happiness is his greatest joy. But despite her love of flowers, she rarely came to the garden. Idris replies that she didn't know about that she could come there whenever she wanted. The Archduke then only smiles and asserts that she can walk wherever she wants and that there are no places in this world where she cannot go. The main character then wonders if Khalid was always a man capable of such sweet things. But the tyrant has become so kind, so now the girl insists that he did say he planted the flowers and created the garden for her. The guy replies that he came there and there because he thought of her. Well, the main character then approaches him and claims that since she is in the garden prepared by him for her, together with her beloved, she feels very happy. The Archduke is very embarrassed after this, and the young lady thanks him and smiles, after which Khalid hugs her and pulls her closer, and then he kisses her. A little while later they're sitting over a cup of tea, and the girl claims she read about it in books, about hearing a melody or a bell ringing when kissing. The guy then asks her if she heard it. However, the girl claims that the frantic beating of her heart was deafening, and that she heard nothing else. The Archduke only smiled afterward. He also claims that, frankly speaking, he only heard his own heartbeat, and it was so good that he was shaking like crazy. But the guy still turns to Idris, and he says that he doesn't want to burden her with such a conversation, but he should ask her about it. After which, the guy asks if the girl remembers by chance the suck that put her into a crippled sleep. The main character then asks what he is talking about, and also remembers how she was wounded in the stomach. And these memories only make the girl feel ill, after which she begins to cough. The Archduke immediately approaches Idris and tells her to calm down, because everything is fine and this will not happen again, so she should not think about it. The guy also claims that he has gone too far and asks for forgiveness. However, the main character says that no, everything is fine, and she also had enough time to think. The one who cast her into eternal sleep, however, had his face covered. The girl then asks if the Archduke thinks it was his enemy, but similar thoughts had visited her, but he doesn't understand why they attacked her in particular. And his enemies have been aiming at him, though unsuccessfully, until now. The young lady then realizes that in the present, as in the past, she has no defense and cannot become the Archduke's weakness, so perhaps the aristocrats. They wanted to marry Khalid to another girl by putting her into eternal sleep, since they always hated her. Khalid then says that although they could have attacked her precisely because of that, it would be extremely difficult to do something like that to him. The guy also asks about her homeland and whether she knows of anyone who wanted her to fall into a crippled sleep. Perhaps someone from her family did it. The main character then begins to tremble, and the Archduke, noticing this, understands that if you think about it, in the past she never said that she wanted to go home. And perhaps the problem was in the family itself, and it will still be necessary to make inquiries about it. But it's Idris who's important now. That's why the Archduke is now claiming it's to make her forget what was said earlier, and it seems he shouldn't have brought up the subject. He also claims he was tactless in reminding her of difficult times and asks her to forgive him. He also tells the girl to rest today. The main character replies that she will do so, and a little while later she finds herself in her bedroom, and remembers the Archduke's words that perhaps someone from her family did it. The girl also remembers her family and understands that she cannot say that she did not know about it. And before she plunged into eternal sleep, she thought that her father or brothers might not know about her plunge into a crippled sleep. But she still thinks whether it is true that they could do this to her, because if it is true, then will she be able to survive this time? The Archduke is in his office at this time, reviewing papers. He also realizes that, among the many aristocrats and Kaltis, no one comes to mind with serious intentions of putting Idris into eternal sleep. However, there are also many who are strong enough to do this. The first thing Khalid did when he returned to the past, he launched an investigation to find the one behind this case. Unfortunately, even after a lengthy investigation, he found nothing. But Idris is clearly afraid of his family, and the man thinks that perhaps he was focusing on the wrong thing from the very beginning. But since it was Idris who was immersed in eternal sleep, he should have focused on her and not on himself. The Archduke also wonders if it was her family who was behind all this. A short time later, the protagonist is already sitting with her maid, and she cries out, wondering if the Archduke really built this enormous garden just for Her Highness. Idris replies that at least that's what he said, and she too was surprised when she heard it. The maid then says with a sparkling smile that it is very romantic, and the main character says that if they have time, she suggests going there together. The girl also realizes that she was terribly depressed when Khalid asked her questions, but she feels much calmer after talking with Elsa. That same evening, the maid approaches her mistress and claims that Lily has confessed her feelings to Hoen. But at that very moment, someone knocks on the door of the room, and the main character tells that person to come in. Then another maid enters the room and announces that the Archduke is waiting for Her Highness in the dining room. The protagonist then realizes it's just about time and tells the maid to tell him she'll be there soon. Idris also thinks whether he finished early today and then goes into the room for dinner. And she sees the Archduke sitting there. She also asks why he put off working on the guy, who claims he hurried to see her. The main character is only embarrassed after this, and the Archduke smiles and offers to eat before it gets cold. A little while later, he turns to Idris and asks what time she plans to go to bed today. The girl replies that she thought she would take a little nap after dinner and asks why he is asking. The guy replies that he just wanted to know when he should go to their room. The young lady looks a little embarrassed and asks if he really means they'll be sleeping together tonight. Khalid replies that yes, and the girl wonders if it is because of what she said earlier. But she did say that he didn't sleep in their bedroom and didn't come to breakfast. But now the young lady claims that everything is fine, and that means she will wait for him in their room after dinner. Well, then the young lady looks at the maids and thinks, how could she say such a thing in front of so many people? The Archduke at this time rises from his seat and states that he must hurry so as not to keep her waiting. And the main character wonders if he really means it now and if she is overreacting. But then the girl sighs and thinks that it's too late because she's sure that she'll find out soon, even though they've already slept together before. A little while later, the young lady is already sitting in the bath and thinks that as soon as she takes it, she will see Khalid. Well then, the young lady wonders why she's so nervous. The maid turns to Her Highness and asks if she said anything, and the main character replies that she doesn't understand anything, that she can't talk about it with Elsa. The maid at this time claims that she almost forgot, and she heard that His Highness is going to sleep in the newlyweds' bedroom today. The protagonist says the girl heard, and that news is spreading faster than she thought. The young lady also realizes that Elsa already knows everything, and the maid at this time turns to Her Highness and asserts that she can imagine how nervous the lady is, but let her not worry about it because she will give her a massage. The main character then says that she is so worried and feels more fear than anticipation, after which she wonders if something is wrong with her. The maid replies that everything is clear and that the mistress is still young. It's also normal to be nervous about unpredictable things. Or maybe it's because she's still thinking about their wedding night. After all, it was their first time, and she could have felt awkward and worried. The main character replies that she actually liked it. The maid asks what the mistress is talking about, after which she sheepishly replies that she didn't. The girl realizes that they have slept together many times in the past, but she has never felt this way before. At this time, the maid turns to the mistress and claims that the other workers are already working hard after such news. The protagonist shocked, asks what she's talking about and how the words could have spread so quickly. After all, she only just found out. Elsa replies that she's still a little worried about her relationship with His Highness. After which, the maid ties a bow on the mistress's robe and confirms the word. The main character then asks who chose this outfit. And Elsa replies that it was chosen by the wardrobe maids especially for this occasion, and they sewed it with their own hands. The main character then realizes that it seems they are all more worried than her. And Elsa asks if the lady doesn't like the outfit because she can offer another one, after which the main character replies that no, and everything is fine. She'll just put it on, since there's no time to change, and especially since she needs to get to the newlyweds' bedroom quickly. Then the maid cries out that His Highness is probably already waiting. A little while later, the main character enters the room and sees the Archduke there. The girl then comes a little closer to him, and the guy says that here she is, and also let the young lady go to bed. He also asks where she got this outfit from, but it's quite short, and the guy asks if he is comfortable, to which the girl replies that it was not she who chose him. The Archduke sighs after this and claims that he thought so. He then covers the young lady, and she thanks him. The brunette says that if she didn't like it, she shouldn't have worn it, and he asks if the girl wants the maid to bring her something else. Idris replies that it's already quite late, and next time she'll ask them to give her something more comfortable. After which, the young lady covers herself with a blanket and realizes that she cannot look this guy in the face because she is too embarrassed. At this time, the Archduke asks if Idris is hot, because her cheeks are red, and the girl is a little surprised, after which she jumps up and cries out that she's fine. The Archduke then claims that every time they're alone, she looks incredible. And this is about their first wedding night, after all, while today her actions were unpredictable. The girl then remembers how she rushed down the corridor and asks if he is talking about that night. The guy then claims that he thinks she was just feeling very uncomfortable, but says that the girl shouldn't be so flustered. After all, even if they are husband and wife, this does not mean that they have to do something every time they are in bed. And he just wanted to fall asleep next to her, after which he asks if the girl is nervous. He also states that he will not pressure her so that she can relax, but he would like to talk to her before bed, and also wonders what she thinks about it. Or the young lady wants to do something more interesting. The main character then goes back to bed, and she answers that no, and she also thinks that it would be good to talk, and thinks what the topic of conversation might be. But then she turns to the Archduke and asks what he wants to talk about. The man asks her to tell him about herself, to which the young lady is a little surprised, and the guy just repeats that he wants to know about her and it could be anything because he just wants to listen. Idris realizes that this is the first time in her life that someone has asked her to talk about herself, and no one had ever been interested in her before. The guy then claims he wants to find out what she likes and dislikes, her hobbies and her interests, and what is she thinking about, because he wants to know everything, after which he says that Idris should tell him everything. The girl is then silent for a while, and a little while later begins her story, and also states that she likes flowers, and her favorite ones are black roses, because the first ones were the first flowers he ever gave her. The guy then claims he wants to clarify that all the flowers in the palace garden were for her, and the young lady claims that she only found out about this today, and besides, it is much nicer when flowers are given in person, because that way you feel something intimate. The Archduke then claims that if she enjoys receiving flowers from him so much, he will decorate her room with flowers all year round. The young lady then asks what about winter, and the man claims that he will find her exotic flowers that will not fade even in winter. The young lady then says that if he does that, people will slander him for being too extravagant. However, the young man tells her not to worry about others, and she just thought about him. The main character realizes that Khalid wasn't there, and she wonders if he really missed her after he returned to the past. And yet he says such embarrassing things now, but nevertheless she claims that, returning to what she was talking about. What she loves more than anything in the world is him, after which the Archduke is a little surprised and asks if she said that she loves him more than anything. She also wonders if Idris is trying to seduce him. Idris then asks, shocked, what he's talking about, and insists she was simply telling him the truth. However, what she doesn't like is the way her family treated her. and all those humiliating words, and also arrogance and looks full of disdain. The girl claims they treated her as if she were a nobody, and she knew perfectly well what they thought of her, but there were times when she wanted them to accept her, and times when she wanted love. But in the end, they were her family, and how foolish it was of her to want love from her father and brothers. These people did not accept her as a person, and she was just a thing that they would one day use for profit. The Archduke then asks if the bruise on her arm on their wedding night was because of them. The girl replies that yes, and it was Keith, who is her second older brother. The Archduke then turns to the young lady and claims that they are nobodies, and that the girl has been through a lot living among these terrible people. So he swears that they will pay for everything, and is sure that it was painful to relive those terrible memories. So now he thanks Idris for telling him about it. The main character also thanks Khalid, and the guy then asks if he can ask her one question, to which the young lady agrees. The Archduke asks why they hate her so much. The protagonist is a little surprised after this, and the guy claims that in the end she is the lady of the Beatrice family, and he cannot understand why her family calls her like that. Idris wonders if Khalid doesn't know that she is only half an aristocrat, and that she is the daughter of a servant. The girl also thinks that, although in the past they rarely spent time together, in this life they have been living hand in hand for more than a year. And she thought that he already knew about her origin, but it seems that he married her without knowing the whole truth. Therefore, the young lady thinks how this is possible, and does Khalid really not know who she is and what others think of her? After which she remembers her words and understands that if he knew her mother, he would never have asked her about this. Now she understands that she cannot breathe, and if Khalid finds out the truth, he will understand that he has wasted his only chance to change time on the pitiful daughter of the maid, and he will hate her for deceiving him to use his power. At this time, the Archduke turns to Idris with concern and sees that she is shaking all over, after which he asks if the girl is feeling unwell, and also wonders why her behavior has changed so abruptly. After all, he only asked about her family, and he is sure that this question hurt her. After which the young man apologizes and claims that he did not want to upset her with such a tactless question, and also that he should not have asked such a thing and was wrong. The main character then clenches her hands and realizes that this is wrong, and she also has to tell Khalid the truth before it is too late. Then the young lady turns to Khalid, but wonders where she will go if she is thrown out into the street, and whether she should give up her identity. The Archduke tells the girl not to worry because she doesn't need to tell him about it, and he doesn't want to hurt her by making her remember what she wanted to forget. Well, the young lady then insists that she must tell him about it. She then addresses him as His Highness and asserts that there is something he needs to know. After all, she wasn't raised as a lady in Beatrice's family, and she's not a purebred aristocrat. Khalid asks what she's talking about, and the young lady insists that, as she said, her mother was a servant who had a brief affair with the Count, and she is the Count's illegitimate child. The young lady realizes that tears are blurring her vision and she cannot see the Archduke's face. However, she still thinks that it's even better this way, because he'll probably get angry and accuse her of lying and maybe even hit her. Well, she loves Khalid so much, and the worst thing for her would be him looking at her with his hatred in his eyes. At this time, the guy is only interested in why she addressed him as His Highness. And the girl replies that it is because, compared to His Highness, she is an illegitimate aristocrat, and how can someone who is not her call the Archduke by his name? The girl also understands that if he orders her to leave, then she should at least be grateful that she will live. However, the brunette then hugs the young lady and tells her he loves her. He also doesn't care what family she belongs to, or what her pedigree is, and he doesn't care whether she's a commoner or not. After all, his relationship with her family is not important to him, because he loves her for who she is, and Idris is all he needs, so he asks the girl to call him by his first name. The young lady then addresses him as follows, and after that, the brunette tells her to do it again, and the young lady does so, after which the guy says that it's good and pulls the girl a little closer to you. He kisses her and reaffirms his love for her. A little while later, Khalid asks if she's feeling better, since she's cried an ocean. The girl replies that she didn't cry that hard, but the man claims that she's a liar. After which he asks how she could think about it, since he will never hate her, just because others didn't like her. The girl then claims that she was sure he would be angry because she deceived him. However, the guy replies that she didn't hide it from him on purpose and thought that he already knew everything. Therefore, the young man wants her to know that his feelings for her will never change, so he hopes that the young lady trusts him. And he also asks her to say that it is so. The main character then, with a smile on her face, says that of course it is so. The next day, the Archduke turns to Ethan and asks if he brought him information about Beatrice's family. The confidant then places a stack of papers on the table and answers yes. Barnett then looks at him with a little surprise, and Ethan asks what's wrong, after which the man asks if Ethan knew the story of Idris's origin. The guy replies that, of course, and he wonders if there is an aristocrat who visits this palace and doesn't know about it. The brunette then clutches the paper and swears, and also understands that even his assistant knew, and it seems he was the only one who was not in the know. At this time, the blonde asks why His Highness suddenly asked. However, he replies that it is none of his business, after which the confidant says it's unimportant, and that the first few pages contain general information about the Count's family. The information on the following pages is a bit more personal. The man then asks what kind of personal questions these are, and his close associates answer that they are things like family relationships and related rumors. The Archduke then begins to read all this, and thinks how cunning the Count was. He did evade the property tax. He also sees that it means they are buying up large quantities of weapons and gathering their own personal army, and this is definitely treason. So he understands why Idris made such a demand in her past life. Then the Archduke sees something else and asks what it is, because life there is like imprisonment. An associate claims that it appears Her Highness was not allowed to dine in the family dining room, and she was given the same food as the servants. It's clear she even suffered from malnutrition several times. The Archduke then recalls how the young lady said that it all looked so delicious. That's why now he slams his fist on the table and screams that she was treated even worse than the servants. He also understands that she has never had power, respect, or reputation, so he will do everything possible to ensure that Idris has what she wants. And they will also do everything in their power to ensure that she receives everything that this world has to offer. A little while later, someone approaches His Highness and hands him an envelope, and he claims that it was a great honor for him to meet His Highness, and that a letter had arrived for the Archduchess, so he tried to deliver it. Khalid claims that Her Highness is sleeping, and he will hand it over personally, to which the guy agrees. After which, he sees that it is, in fact, a letter from Beatrice's family. A short time later, he enters the young lady's room, and he asks if she's awake. The girl replies yes and asks if he brought her anything, but the guy, holding a letter in his hands, replies that nothing. He also says that the young lady's eyes are swollen. The protagonist then asks, "Is he serious, and is it really that bad?" The Archduke replies that he will order the servants to bring him some ice. The girl then replies that it's not worth it, because she'll just ask Elsa to help her later, and asks if her eyes really look that bad. Khalid replies that it's not at all true. Even with her eyes puffy, she's as beautiful as ever. The main character becomes a little embarrassed after this and says that she will go for a swim first. Khalid then turns to her and asks if he can help her with this. He then goes up to her and hugs her, and the main character just tells him to stop teasing her, and the screwdriver insists that he is not joking. He also asks if they should take a bath together, to which the young lady is a little surprised. And then he even imagines this, and also gets very embarrassed and thinks that she must be crazy, because what was she thinking about? The guy asks her what she was thinking about the young lady, and she replies, nothing. The young man then comments on how red her face is, after which the girl cries out that she needs to wash herself and asks him to leave. Then she leaves the Duke alone, and he turns around and says okay, and then they will see each other later. The main character, while in the bath, realizes that Khalid was holding a letter back then, and she wonders who it was from. Well, the young lady also thinks, what is the point of being interested? Because maybe it has nothing to do with her at all, and perhaps it is some kind of secret document about Kaltis or something else. Elsa comes into the room a little while later and claims that she was surprised when the lady suddenly asked to bring her ice, but now she sees that her eyes are slightly. The main character then interrupts the maid and asks if things are really that bad, and she replies that yes, and she thinks the mistress should keep the ice going for at least 30 minutes. A little while later, the young lady is already lying down, and the maid helps her introduce the ice. Then the young lady turns to Elsa and asks if she is even a little concerned about why her eyes are swollen. However, the maid only smiles, and the young lady wonders why she is laughing. Elsa claims that she is so happy, and it seems that she had a good night with the Archduke. But she was so beautiful that the lady's eyes were so swollen. The main character then wonders how she can explain the swelling with something like that. Then she wonders what the maid was imagining, and the girl replies that not only the lady's eyes are swollen, but her lips too, and only one thing could have led to this. The main character then asks, a little surprised, if her lips are also swollen, and the maid asks if she really didn't know, but it's very noticeable. The young lady then freezes in place and claims that the train is in her room today, so let the maid take breakfast there. She also understands that it is very dangerous to leave this room. A little while later, the girl looks in the mirror and realizes that the swelling has finally gone down a bit. But then someone knocks on the door, and the young lady tells them to come in. However, when someone sees this, they are a little surprised and also ask if this is really Khalid. The boy then heads to her bed with food. The young lady claims she asked Elsa to bring her breakfast, and she wonders why he brought it. However, Khalid only tells her to sit down and also claims that he is worried. When I heard that she would be eating there, I thought that the young lady was sick, but the girl replied that no, and everything was fine. She also simply did not want to go to the dining room today. Khalid replies that he is glad that she is okay, and then let the young lady help herself. The main character sees all this luxurious food, after which she takes a fork and knife and begins to eat. The Archduke watches this, and then says that it is wonderful that she likes the food. He also claims that this wine was made from rare grape varieties grown in Caltais, known for their juiciness and cloyingly sweet flavor, and he wanted the young lady to try it, after which the guy hands her the glass. And the main character tries this wine, and with a smile on her face claims that it leaves a very pleasant sweetness in her mouth. Khalid insists he'll serve it to her more often. A short time later, they're already outside, and Father Duke addresses his wife. Well, then he thinks whether he should talk about it, and the young lady says that, if it is about her family, it's okay and he can talk because she has him, so everything is fine. And the man then asks if she ever imagined that her immersion into eternal sleep happened because he did not give in to the demands of her family. The girl then asks if he is talking about demands and claims that this means the letter she saw was from her family. The Archduke replies that everything is so, and they demanded the rights to the mines in Caltais, and they wanted the same thing in the past. The main character then looks at the Archduke with a little surprise, and he claims that it is from her father. The main character then says that the guy didn't give his father what he wanted, and asks if he wants to say that her father put her into eternal sleep because she became useless to him. Khalid then sighs and claims that he thinks it's okay to say that, since before their wedding, he fulfilled one of his political demands as a favor for the marriage proposal. But after the wedding, his demands became more and more excessive, so he simply began to ignore him. And, probably, the young lady's father realized that the girl could not influence him, so he probably decided that he no longer needs her. The protagonist then, shocked, asks if that's really true, and also realizes that, objectively speaking, Khalid's theory makes sense, and as far as she remembers, her father was always only concerned with how useful she could be to him. He despised and hated her from the very beginning, and the young lady is certain he would have preferred to be rid of her. Now the girl claims her father hated her all his life. There were also many instances where, because of its existence, he was ridiculed by other aristocrats, and besides, he was a very calculating person, stingy with praise and harsh in punishments. Her stepbrothers also hated her, so the girl thinks that they would have agreed if her father had offered to put her into eternal sleep. And her family could really do that, because she was an obstacle that needed to be eliminated, and they definitely despised her, and the girl was also sure that they would benefit from her immersion in eternal sleep. The Archduke then says that, of course, besides her family, there were other families of aristocrats in Caltais, but since they rarely saw her in the past, he cannot imagine that any of them truly hated her, and the other aristocrats would not have received any benefit from her immersion in the involved sleep, and on the contrary, they would have lost a lot, because the aristocrats who had tried to finish him off only once so far had not tried to finish him off, so he was not very worried about her safety. And I also never could have imagined that someone would try to put her into eternal sleep. But it is still hard to believe that they suddenly changed their tactics, and without a wife he would still not have an heir, which could cause Kaltis to become unstable and weak. The main character then claims that she thought the same thing, which means that besides these aristocrats, there is someone else who hates him. The boy then replies that there are indeed some, and the young lady asks who, and the Archduke affirms that they call themselves Erebos, and that this is a group that destroys demons. They also believe that he is a demon that must be destroyed. After which the man said, well, he's a demon after all, so he can't blame them. The main character asks if they shouldn't worry about them. The guy replies that the worst thing this group did was spread gossip and rumors about him. And besides, you need permission from the authorities to enter the palace. But in Erebos, there are only commoners, and it is unlikely that any of them could defeat the palace knights, and in any case, entry into the palace is forbidden to commoners. The main character then wonders if this means that the Duke really could have been an assassin. But she thinks this confirms that her father saw her only as a benefit, and that she was simply an object to be thrown away. Once she becomes useless, the girl realizes that she is falling into darkness, and she knew that this was quite possible. But it turns out that it really was true, and she existed only for the sake of bringing him benefit. At this time, the Archduke takes the young lady by the hand and tells her not to be upset, because he will protect her at the cost of his own life, and in this world she is everything to him. The main character then smiles and replies that yes, she won't plunge herself into eternal sleep this time either. But a little while later, the girl opens the letter and claims that she is still curious why the Duke is asking for something so valuable. She also understands that her father probably thought that she could convince him, and the man asks why. And the young lady replies that it is because he knows her weakness, and the Archduke asks what it is. After which the girl claims that her mother is with him, and she already knew then that her father's demands were absurd, but as long as he had her mother, she had no choice but to beg him to give him what he wanted. The girl also claims that in that house no one accepted her as a member of the family. Her mother was the only one who cared about her, and the sweet tea she made for her, and the songs they sang together at night were the only thing that allowed her to survive in that house. The girl also claims that she will never stop loving her mother, so she did whatever it took to keep her safe. The Archduke then says that it is clear, and now it is clear to him why she asked him for such strange things, and it was not like her. The man also wonders what he should do, since he knows that the young lady's mother is in the hands of the Duke. He cannot continue to refuse his demands. Idris replies that he should not fulfill his demands, and every time he refused him, her father would get angry and threaten to put her mother into a crippled sleep. The girl also claims that he still knows that as soon as he raises his hand against her, he will lose her as a useful pawn that he placed in the palace. But then the main character is shocked and thinks about what happened to her mother after she fell into a crippled sleep. But it's obvious, and probably, he did the same to her. That's why now the girl claims that after all, this is only the first letter that he sent, so it doesn't matter so much if he refuses him now. The young lady then turns to Khalid, and the guys apologize and claim that he was just thinking, and of course her mother's safety is a priority, but he cannot forget that he is a representative of Kaltis. The man also turns to his wife and asks what is the matter with this, and also states that he will tell the Duke that he agrees to use his demands and also invite him to come there. The young lady then asks if he really wants to invite her father to Kaltis. The man replies that they're setting a trap for him too. The heroine then asks what he's talking about, and the Archduke confirms. What he will say is that he agrees with his demand for a leg. He will need to come there to discuss the details, and he will also ask him to bring the young lady's mother because she misses her. The main character then replies that she understood, and this plan is to save her mother from the clutches of the Duke, to which the man replies that this is true, and, moreover, he is going to punish the Duke and his sons. The young lady then asks if this is possible, and the brunette replies that, since he is the Duke of the Empire, it will not be so easy to do, and also there is no evidence that it was her father who hired the mercenary. The girl replies that she knows how powerful Khalid is, but Beatrice's family is also influential in the Empire. After which the man claims that as soon as they arrive in Kaltes, she can be sure that he will cope with it and destroy them. The Archduke also claims he will make them regret their decision to torture Idris Beatrice. The young lady understands that she will not oppose this decision against the Duke or the rest of the family, even if she feels uneasy. And the man claims that it doesn't matter how strong they are in the Empire, because as soon as these people set foot on his lands, then they won't be able to escape from there so easily, and he won't let them do it. The main character then understands that he can do whatever he wants in Kaltis, but if he punishes her half-brother's father, then will the Emperor stand aside? Khalid claims that if what he suspects turns out to be true, the Emperor will agree with his decision, and the young lady then asks if he will understand even if Khalid punishes one of the high-ranking imperial aristocrats. The guy then turns to Idris and asks her why she thinks the Duke wants to get the rights to the Kaltis magic stone mines. The girl replies that this is probably because these stones can be sold at a high price and believes that this is for financial gain, and the man then says that there is another option. The magic stone can absorb magic, and whoever owns it can gain it themselves. The girl then says that, of course, possessing a magic stone is the same as possessing power for oneself. She's also heard that even knights covet them, as weapons become stronger when combined with a magic stone. The Archduke then replies that this is true and that weapons that have been improved in this way are considered the best and are known as enchanted balls, after which he asks if the girl really thinks that the Duke wants to sell these stones to others. The young lady then asks if this means her father intends to take possession of the magical stones rather than simply sell them. Khalid says she's spot on, but the girl claims that this is impossible because her father has already met enough to hire powerful magicians and there's no point in you obtaining rights to the stones, but the man is interested. What if the Duke wants even more power and, based on his information, recently purchased a large quantity of weapons? Immediately afterward, he sent her a letter stating that he wanted the rights to the Kaltis mines, and he asks what the young lady thinks and what that means. The girl then asks if he really means to say that her father is going to combine this weapon with energy stones, and the screwdriver replies that this is just an assumption. However, the young lady claims that even her father will be executed by the Emperor if he tries to create enchanted swords. And Khalid then asks what if the Duke is going to rebel against the Emperor. After all, he did not pay taxes on property, and the accumulation of a huge amount of money, as well as the subsequent purchase of private soldiers and weapons, can only mean one thing. And this is what the Duke is planning: a rebellion. The protagonist is then a little surprised and asserts that, if this is true, then she will become the daughter of a traitor and will not be able to avoid execution. However, the guy tells Idris not to worry because he has a plan, and let the young lady simply trust him. The next day, the boy sent 2 letters, one of which was addressed to the Duke, just as Idris had told him. In it, the Khalid wrote that he was interested in discussing the terms of the rights to the mines, so the Duke would have to visit Kaltis in person to discuss the details. And because Idris missed her mother very much, he asked the Count to bring her with him. And another letter was sent to Khalid's uncle, who is the Emperor, and now the man is reading it. There the Archduke wished His Majesty a good day, and also claimed that he had been so busy with governing that he had forgotten his duties as his nephew. The Emperor then claimed that his nephew was finally in action. He then also read that he had noticed Duke Beatrice engaging in suspicious activity. However, the Emperor was then wondering what to do, because one hasty action, and the aristocrats from the opposition would immediately rebel. He also realized that it looked like Khalid and Duke Beatrice would meet in a few days, after which he claimed that it was wonderful, and the house would be left without an owner, so he was obliged to look there. A little while later, someone approaches Khalid and claims that a reply has come from His Highness, and it says that an imperial representative would be sent to look into the situation, and she thought the evidence they sent to the Emperor worked. The girl also says that now all that remains is to wait for her father's response to the invitation. And the Archduke replies that, yes, everything is going according to plan. The guy then takes the young lady by the hand, but says that it looks like she is still nervous. The girl replies that, yes, and perhaps she has no attachment to them, but still, it concerns her family, and she has mixed feelings about it. The young lady also says that her father is a very influential man, and she's never seen him lose. Perhaps that's why she can't imagine this plan coming to fruition and him being punished. But then the young lady apologizes and claims that she shouldn't have said anything just to avoid jinxing it. However, the Archduke then turns to his wife and says that everything will be fine. And she said that she would trust him, so he asks Idris to believe him. The girl then agrees and asks him to protect her and her mother. The Archduke then takes her hand in his, and he says it's an honor for him. The girl then realizes they've already received a reply from the Emperor, meaning her father and half-brothers must have read Khalid's letter. The man reads it at this time and then smirks, and his son asks what it says. The Duke then claims that it sounds as if the girl was able to persuade the Archduke, and exactly as he expected, since he has her mother. The man's other son asks if this means the Archduke has agreed to grant him the rights to the magic stone mines in Kaltis. The Duke replies that yes, and he wishes to meet in person to discuss the details, and his only condition is that he brings Idris's mother with him, especially since it seems like the girl misses her. The man's eldest son then asks if he is talking about that maid. And it's not difficult to do, so let his father just take her with him on the trip and then bring her back. The man then says that, of course, there is no problem in taking the maid with him, and that is the only thing that worries him. This means they can plan for something unexpected. The young lady's brother only smiles at this point, and he says that his father is worrying too much, and also asks if he really thinks that Idris will take the maid. But the Archduke would never have allowed her to do this. And, firstly, his pride wouldn't allow him to live with his mother-in-law, who was a servant. He then told his brother to watch his language in front of their father. He also claims that despite how Kate put it, he is right, because the Archduke may be unhappy that his wife is of such low pedigree, and rumor has it that if the Archduke doesn't finish eating, he'll behead him on the spot. So he wonders if his father seriously thinks such an arrogant and proud man would accept a servant. The man then says fine, and then he'll set a date and go to the Kaltis to discuss matters with the Archduke. He also says that Ken, as the eldest, will remain there and look after the house. The boy then agrees, and his father says that Kate will go with him to Kaltes and that his job will be to keep an eye on the maid. The young man then asks if his father is talking about him, and then says okay, and he thinks he can do it. The man then simply laughs and claims he can't believe the rights to the Kaltesa magic stone mines are his. One of the sons then congratulates his father, claiming he deserves it, and that fate is on their side, and Beatrice's family will soon become the new ruling family. Meanwhile, the Archduke reads the reply to the letter and smirks. A little while later, the main character also reads this letter, and it says that her father would like to thank the Archduke for accepting his request, and after he has completed some household chores, he will immediately head to Kaltis. And, by the way, he asks how his daughter is doing, because he is sure that everything is fine with her, since His Highness is nearby, but he is still worried whether she was able to get used to the new place. And as soon as he heard that Idris was missing her mother, his heart ached, because he was her father, and he asked to tell Idris that there was no need to worry, because she would soon meet her mother. The main character is now thinking what a bastard he is, because this man treated her like a nobody. And how dare he pretend to be a loving father? The Archduke asks if the young lady is all right. She merely clutches the paper and insists that everything is going as Khalid said. The boy then asks the young lady not to dwell on her father's words. And what's important is that she will soon meet her mother, after which Khalid apologizes, and he says that she shouldn't have read it, and that he shouldn't have shown it to her. The girl then replies that no, and it was she who asked him to read this sheet, and besides, now she knows for sure that her father, or rather Duke Beatrice, never loved her. The girl also understands that Khalid could simply have stuck to his plan. He kept her in the dark, and he didn't have to tell her about it. But now the young lady clenches her fists and thinks he could have taken revenge on his own. And this is also Khalid's way of paying for her immersion in eternal sleep. But all this was her revenge from the very beginning. And one day they wiped her off the face of the earth, so she will do the same to them. After which the young lady turns to her husband and understands that in the future she must destroy him in the best possible way so that she will not have any regrets. And now she asks her husband to make sure that he completely erases Count Beatrice from the face of this world. The Archduke then only smiles and agrees, and also says that the girl can count on this. The man understands that he could have dealt with this situation without Idris's consent, but if he had done so, he would have been no better than the Count, who always controlled her against her will. The man also remembers her facial expression and realizes that the young lady looked confident. and it means that she made her choice, and even if it is painful, it will help her heal from the scars of the past. At this time, the girl enters her husband's office and states that she thought it would be nice to have some tea together. Khalid is thinking at this time that if he dragged her into all this and now claims that it sounds great, the main character then says he looks confused and wonders if something's wrong. He replies that it's simply not. He feels like he's forcing her to do it. Idris then places his hand on Khalid's. He then claims he told her to trust him, because he will be on her side and it would be a lie to say that everything is fine, but it is not his fault. And she feels this way only because she's too soft. Khalid insists that a kind heart means she's human, and there's nothing strange about that. The main character then thanks the guy for his words and says this is why she believes him, after which they look at each other and begin to move closer. But when their lips almost touch, then Ethan bursts into the room and addresses His Highness. He insists that the financial plan needs to be reviewed for Duke Beatrice's visit. Well, then the main character gets a little scared and then screams that she needs to go because she promised Elsa that they would take a walk in the garden. The Archduke then turns to the guy and asks if he really broke in there for some financial plan. However, his confidant replies that he is not the only one who has come to tell him that the Duke left his estate this morning, and he thinks that the journey to Caltes will take about 4 days. The Archduke then says that it is time to start cleaning up the estate, and his entourage asks whether the gentleman has the Archduchess in mind for his mother, and they have already started doing that. And also, if there are no more questions, he will order the butler to conduct a final check of the premises. And after everything was settled, he was thinking about a small excursion. And this Duke asks, why? The guy replies that they received a message that Erebos is up to something, and they absolutely need to keep an eye on that group. Khalid replies that he doesn't think they're planning anything serious, but whatever. A little while later, the main character turns to Ethan, and the guy says that Her Highness probably feels uncomfortable because of all this. The girl then says that it was like that before, but after His Highness calmed her down, she feels much better. The man then says that this means the young lady is a very strong person, and the main character asks if he says that she is strong. Ethan then claims that, yes, there are people in this world who cannot be consoled at all. Moreover, some find words of comfort useless, and they think that an attempt to calm down is a mockery of them, and they also do not believe that these outwardly happy people can be sincere and caring. The young man then turns around and, with a smile on his face, states that he simply wanted to say that all people are different, and wonders if the young lady can believe that people behave hostilely towards those who try to comfort them. The main character then hesitates a little, after which she smiles and confirms. That's not entirely true. Ethan then asks what she's talking about, and the girl confirms it. That some people may feel this way because they are in a terrible situation. Perhaps they are in a place where words of comfort cannot reach them, and when someone is in such a sad situation, she sees how they can envy those who look happy. But that doesn't mean these people are to blame and that their environment shapes their behavior. When someone cannot accept the beliefs of others, it means that something in that person's environment made him think that way. Ethan is silent for a moment, and the young lady asks what is going on, after which the young man only smiles, and he says that Her Highness is truly a very kind person, after which he bows and thanks her for talking to him, and also claims that he needs to go, and the young lady says that it's okay, and she's sure that he's very busy and that's why he can go. The main character realizes that Ethan was probably also ahead of hard times, but he seems to be feeling better, so she's happy. The young man looks at the young lady and thinks for a moment. At this time, the young lady's brother is riding in the carriage and asks why the hell he can't go out with his father, and also shouldn't he at least be in front. Someone else turns to the guy and says there's nothing he can do, since the Duke asked him to keep an eye on this woman. Kate then says that's exactly it, and he can't believe he has to suffer because of some servant. At this time, the young lady's mother turns to the young gentleman and says that the Duke does not trust him, and it is surprising that he is the one watching her. After all, she dislikes this situation much more than he does. The woman also claims that the assignment is so important. It must be given to the heir, who is the first son. The woman also asks if he, as the second son, agrees to this. However, the young man only screams at her to shut her mouth and asks if the woman thinks she can get away with it since his father was polite to her. But he has no doubt that she feels confident only because her daughter married the devil archduke. He also says that the mother-in-law and the devil's nickname, which is just the right hint for her. The woman then looks at the guy a little coldly and remains silent. Meanwhile, the main character strolls through the garden with the maid. Elsa says that this garden is very beautiful, and the main character apologizes for not bringing her there earlier. And she was very busy. The maid then says that this is nonsense, and the most important thing is that they are there now, and to be there in such a beautiful place. The main character then turns to Elsa, and he asks what happened. The girl replies that, frankly speaking, she heard that the Duke would soon arrive at the palace, and she wondered whether the lady should meet with the Duke. She also understood that it was His Grace who had made Her Highness's life so miserable. The main character then realizes that she knows what Elsa is thinking and would like to tell her the truth about their plan. But now she only claims that the Duke is coming for political negotiations with His Highness, so she will not see him. The maid then says that it's okay, but she still doesn't like this situation and she wonders why he had to go all the way to Kaltis. The main character says that on the other hand, the Duke will also bring her mother and this is a chance to check with her, after which Elsa asks if this is true. And he also says that it would be wonderful if she stayed there, to which the young lady says that this is definitely the case. And he also wonders if the maid suspects something or if it was just an accident that hit the mark. Elsa then states that in any case, she is glad to hear that Miss Honey will be coming to them, and the main character says that she is too. A little while later, the girl is already lying on the bed, but then she hears the door to the room opening. He also understands that it is Khalid, after which he asks what brought him there. But the guy is just wondering if it's really so strange that he came to their marital bedroom to see her. The girl replies that she didn't mean it that way and that he had simply been so busy the last few days that they had even slept in different bedrooms because of this. The guy then sits down on the bed and turns to Idris, after which he approaches her and he kisses her. Afterwards, the young lady asks Khalid if it worked, and the guy assumes she's forgotten. And it's a little offensive. The young lady then asks what he's talking about, and the guy insists that it's today, their wedding day. The main character is a little surprised and wonders how she could have forgotten. But she was very absent-minded. The guy at that time claims that it seems she finally remembered, and the young lady claims that things got to her. The Archduke then lies down on the bed and tells the girl not to worry, because not much time has passed since she accepted his feelings, and he has no intention of pressuring her. He also claims that he can wait for her forever, and the young lady is a little surprised. The young man insists that a carriage will be waiting at the palace's back entrance tomorrow. He ordered the coachman to take it to his private estate and let the young lady be absolutely certain that her mother has boarded it. He also claims that he is the only one who knows where the estate is, and that even the Duke won't be able to find it. The protagonist then realizes that this will indeed happen tomorrow. And tomorrow her father, as well as her half-brothers who abused her in the past, will be there, and tomorrow her mother, who is her only family and the one she loves so much, will come. So now the young lady only sighs. The Archduke takes her hand and assures her that everything will be fine. The main character then asks if he thinks that his father or Kate might suspect something, and the guy replies that that's why he prepared a shabby-looking carriage, and they can simply say that they sent a servant on an errand. The girl then wonders if her father would be interested if her mother suddenly disappeared. The Archduke, with a smile on his face, claims that he will not even ask about it, being more interested in discussing the rites to extract the magic stones. And while he's talking to her, the girl can, under the pretext of wanting to speak with her mother in person, take her away from the palace. The young lady then thanks her husband and wonders if she can pull it off, and also what should she do if she can't save her mother, and what if the Duke finds out about their plan before she puts her mother in the carriage, and also if Kate accompanies them. However, the young lady's husband only says that she can, but now she needs to get some sleep, and she needs to rest before tomorrow. The next morning, the young lady wakes up, and the maid helps her get ready. Elsa, looking at the lady, says that she was already beautiful when she lived in the Duke's mansion, but now she has become even more beautiful. She also says today, Her Highness will show them how good it is there. And even if she was forced into this marriage, she'll show them how happy she is, so the Duke and the young master will go crazy with envy. The main character says she'll definitely do it too, so the girls shouldn't worry. Then the Archduke enters the room and asks if Idris is ready. The girl replies that she is too. After which the man says that they should go then, and they head into the hall. There the young lady sees a woman with black hair, and when she turns to her, then the girl realizes it's her mother. The Duke bows and confirms that it was a great honor for him to meet the Light of Kaltis. The man merely claims that he was expecting them. And the Duke thinks that every time he meets this guy, he remembers how much his appearance matches his nickname, the Devil. He also thanks His Highness for such a warm welcome, and the man asserts that it should be so. It's a long trip, so he thanks them for coming to Kaltis, and it's been a long time since he's seen his wife. The Duke also looks at his daughter and realizes that he thought she would be treated with disdain, but it is an expensive dress. And a hairpin made of rare red jade, and it looks like the girl has settled in quite well there. Despite his lowly origins, the man still asks how Idris is doing. And he also understands that he must endure this for the last time, because after this, he will never see her again. However, the Duke at this time turns to the man and he becomes a little frightened. And the brunette claims that perhaps he is confused due to a long separation from his wife, but now he must remember that Idris is an archduchess, and therefore also the ruler of Kaltis, and he wonders if the man understands what that means. After all, he's obligated to treat her with the utmost respect. The man then bows and asks for forgiveness, and also claims that he was rude. He also asks how Her Highness is doing, and the main character only smiles after that, and he claims she feels much better than before. The man then realizes that he was the one who clothed and fed her. That's why he doesn't understand how this girl can behave so brazenly. And it's me who claims it at the moment. It's a bit unusual for his generous wife to say something like that, and he wonders how badly the Duke treated her in the past, and also asks if there is anything he needs to say. The young lady's father confirms it. What must be the reason for this is that His Highness treats the Archduchess so well, and he is confident that he has provided her with a wonderful life. But now the Archduchess prefers Kaltis. The main character then thinks what kind of terrible excuse this is. The Archduke at this time offers her father to go inside. After which they all go in, but then the Archduke stops and asks why. Idris does not want to talk to his mother alone, to which the young lady says that she would be happy to. And he also understands that he said that a carriage would be waiting for them near the back entrance. Then the young lady extends her hand to her mother and invites her to come. But at that moment, her brother looms over her. The young lady then asks what's wrong, and the young man is silent for a moment. Then he says he will accompany Her Highness. After this, the main character only smirks and thinks, what kind of sight is this? But he addresses her with such respect, and she thinks that the words that Khalid said to the Duke put pressure on him too. Well, she can't allow Kate to go with them, so now the girl claims that everything is fine. And the boy should go with his father, as well as the Archduke. Khalid then asserts that yes, and he will only disturb the lady, but the young man then says that so much time has passed since he saw his sister, so we'll go with them so they can talk. The brunette is silent for a moment after this, but then turns to Duke Beatrice, and he asks whether it turns out that his son, unlike him, does not intend to cooperate in their negotiations today. And he also asks how he should understand this, after which the Duke thinks what he should do. But then he just grabs his son and asks how he dares to upset the Archduke, so let him apologize immediately. The young man then asks for forgiveness and claims that he was not in his right mind and will also give the summer time to be alone. The main character then turns to her mother and invites her to go, and the rest of the family watches as they leave. When they leave the room, the woman asks where they're going. The main character replies that they're heading to the back door, and there should be a pig there who will take her to Khalid's estate, and only he knows its location so that mother will be safe there. But the woman then asks why the young lady is a little surprised, and also asks what she is talking about. Her mother at this time claims that she understands that the girl is trying to save her from the Duke, but what is she gonna do next, and is she really going to lock her in the Duke's estate instead of the Duke's houses? The main character then asks if she is talking about locking her up, and she would never do that to her, but the woman says that she knows that the Duke is demanding something from her, intimidating her in an impossible way. And so the girl is now trying to hide it, that is, her only weakness, from the whole world. But the young lady claims that she never thought so, and the woman says that let's say she is telling the truth, and such a thing was not in her thoughts. But how can she believe that the Archduke is not the one trying to get rid of her? The young lady then turns to her mother and says that the rumors about Khalid are full of lies, and they planned it all together, so she takes her mother's hands in hers and asks her to trust her at least once. She also asks the woman to go with her, and claims that she has been waiting for the day when she can free her mother. She also tells her not to worry, because today she and Khalid will take care of everything. At this time, they are already approaching the handle, and the coachman asks if they are there, to which the girl replies that it is a gift, and His Highness told him what to do. The man then replies that of course he will take her there safe and sound, so there is no need to worry. The main character then turns to her mother and says that they will see each other soon. The woman nudges him in response, after which the carriage drives away. However, when the Duke looks out the window, he notices a carriage riding there and asks where it's from. The Archduke replies that the butler probably sent a servant on an errand, and the young lady's father realizes that he is becoming paranoid, and if it weren't for this Duke with his menacing nickname, the Metro, he would never have left Idris and Hani alone. But he is confident that he has nothing to worry about, because the rights to the mines are the only thing he needs to focus on now. The Emperor sits on his throne and sighs. Someone approaches him and asks if something is wrong. The man then asks where Duke Beatrice is now. The boy replies that he left his estate a few days ago, and so today he arrived in Kaltes. The Emperor then asks the boy if he thinks Duke Beatrice has already met with the Archduke. And the young man replies that yes, enough time has already passed for him to reach the palace and meet with the Archduke. The blonde says that yes, and that means Beatrice's estate must be empty. He thinks the time has come to do what Khalid suggested, but a servant approaches His Majesty and claims that Ken Beatrice is still in residence. The man then asks if the servant is talking about this guy, and the young man replies that he is. And he is the eldest son in Beatrice's family, and the Duke apparently left him in charge of the estate for them while they were in Kaltes. The Emperor then claims that he knows that Ken Beatrice is the Duke's eldest son, but that the tiny tiger cub is no match for him. The servant then asks what His Majesty wants to say, but he only tells the boy to send the knights to the Duke's estate. After all, he cannot miss the opportunity that his nephew presented, and they also need to find evidence. To destroy these traitors, the man says that if the guy finds anything suspicious, he should immediately report it to him. A little while later, Ken asks what this means, and how can the Imperial Knights burst in without warning, and don't they know that this estate belongs to the head of the aristocrats? The head butler then says that he is very sorry, and that they insisted that they came by order of the Emperor, and he was powerless against them. The brunette then screams, "What the hell?" and he should have stopped them and also had to do everything possible to prevent this from happening. Well, then the man wonders if the Emperor and the Archduke really planned this together because he summoned his father and that's what he needed from the very beginning. The boy also realizes that there are still documents in the office that he did not have time to get rid of, as well as letters that his father wrote to other aristocrats inviting them to join the rebellion. At this time, someone turns to the knights and tells them to start their search from the second floor. However, the brunette then screams at them to stop because this is the house of Duke Beatrice, and he asks if they really think that they will not pay for this. However, one of the knights then asked with a smirk on his face if the guy hadn't heard, since this was an order from the Emperor himself. Ken then asked what the knight was talking about when he claimed that they were simply following orders to inspect the traitor's estate. At this time, someone shouts to the captain that they have found them, after which he tells him to look there. And this document contains forbidden information about the creation of enchanted swords, and the Emperor did not give them permission to do so. After which he screams for the traitor to be arrested. Meanwhile, the Archduke walks down the corridor and sighs. He realizes that he had to pretend to bargain in order to buy himself some time. But spending even such a small amount of time with Duke Beatrice is unbearable. After which the man enters his wife's room, and the young lady asks if he has returned. He also asks how the conversation with the Duke went, and the guy replies that it doesn't matter whether it was successful or not, they just needed to buy a little time. The young lady then asks if he didn't suspect anything, and the guy then remembers how he asked about where this crew was going. The Archduke then replied that the butler had probably sent one of the servants on an errand, but was now thinking about it. Is this man's intuition really that developed? It's too much to be a coincidence. After which he tells the girl not to worry, and that what is more important is whether her mother got out safely. The main character then replies that yes, she left without any problems, and she was just wary from the very beginning. The man then asks if she is talking about being wary, and the girl replies that yes, and after all, she has experienced a lot at the Duke's estate. But she thinks that she has already reached his estate, and the guy says that most likely. He also realizes that, now that he thinks about it, Khalid had to do a lot to make this plan work. But then something knocks on the window, and the young lady wonders if it is a criminal. But they are so high up. At this time, the Archduke opens the window, and the young lady says that this could be dangerous. But at that very moment, a falcon flies into the room, and the main character asks if this is really a bird. After which she also sees a letter on her paw and realizes that she has never seen a falcon used as a messenger bird. The Archduke opens the letter and claims that it is the Emperor's falcon, and that it only delivers secret messages, so there must be urgent news for him. The main character just strokes the falcon and asks what it says about men, who claim that this is good news. The falcon then flies away, and the man claims that it looks like the Emperor has inspected the Duke's estate. The young lady wonders what happened and whether they were able to find evidence. The man claims that after the search they found evidence that the Duke was trying to illegally create an enchanted sword, and for this reason, Ken Beatrice was arrested. During the document check, correspondence was found between him and other aristocrats, and through these letters, they discussed a plan for an uprising, so it was all over for Duke Beatrice. The main character then asks if this is true, and the man replies that yes, after which the young lady understands that it is finally all over. And she is saved from falling into eternal sleep, but the girl wonders why she feels this way. And she feels a mixture of relief and bitterness. After which, the girl turns to Khalid and asks for a hug. She also understands that everything will be fine, and the Archduke at this time agrees. After which he hugs the young lady, and she thinks that everything will be fine because he is next to her. A little while later, the Duke and his son enter the Archduke's room, and the boy asks what he is doing. At this time, Khalid only tells the young man to continue barking, and Kate claims that this is unacceptable. And the man called them to negotiate about the rights to extract the magic stone, but all he did was waste their time with his empty words, and also let this woman be Idris's biological mother. But Hani is officially the Duke's servant, which means she is their property. They also just heard that their servant hasn't returned to his quarters since last night. The young man also claims that he would never have thought that the great Archduke would desire a pathetic servant girl, and he must return her to them now. The Archduke then thinks for a moment and states that there are 3 things he misunderstood. Firstly, now you shouldn't address Hani as the Duke's servant, since Idris is his wife, which means Hani is his mother-in-law. And he doesn't think the guy is stupid enough to call the Archduke's mother-in-law servant. And secondly, he didn't steal her anywhere and never forced her to do anything to anyone because the woman chose his protection of her own free will. And thirdly, from now on he is forbidden to own any property. The man then asks what the Archduke is talking about, and he claims that this joke is no longer funny, so he asks that it be stopped immediately. However, the man insists this is no joke. From this point on, they are not allowed to own anything. All the things they owned before today, and everything that increased their value, will turn to dust. The Duke then cries out that he is talking nonsense, and he may be the Archduke of Kaltes, but his behavior today is unacceptable. However, the Archduke only laughs after this, and says that under no circumstances. After all, he is talking to traitors to the Empire, and will even say that he is too polite to them. After which he asks Idris if this is true, and what she thinks. The girl only turns away, and with a smile on her face, she claims that she thinks it looks pretty pathetic, and even their reactions are pathetic and cowardly. The only choice they have now is to get on their knees and beg or categorically renounce their claims. She also can't believe how merciful Khalid is being to them now. However, the young man cries out that this is absurd. and he asks where the girl heard such a thing. But they were framed. The Archduke then asks if the guy is saying they were framed, and he claims that apparently the Emperor had already searched their house, and did they seriously think that he would give up the rights to extract the magic stones. But they really did fall right into a trap, and it was quite reckless. The Duke then claims that this cannot be true, and that he was stalling because he was simply trying to give the Temperature more time to search the house, and the young lady's brother claims that there was some kind of mistake and that there was a clear misunderstanding, because they would never. He was set up, after which the young man also screams at Idris and approaches her. And he also grabs her by the leg and begs her to say that everything is not so, because she knows what. They have done nothing wrong. So let the girl tell the Archduke that they are innocent. The young man begs her once again, and the main character realizes that for the first time, Kate looked at her without hatred or contempt, and all she saw in his pleading eyes was despair and fear. At this time, the young man claims that he will ask her as her brother, which surprises the girl a little, after which he smirks and asks if he wasn't the one who forbade me from calling myself that. Now he wants to reclaim his role as the big brother. The girl also says it's too late to become a family. The young man then rises from the floor and angrily addresses Idris, asking how she dares to say such a thing. After all, the girl is such a worthless nobody. However, the main character can no longer bear it, and so she rises from her seat. And he gives his brother a resounding slap and says what a worthless person he is. The young lady also screams out whether he even knows what she had to go through while living in that terrible house, and she kept hoping that one day people would start to care about her, and also convinced herself that one day her family would love her. But now she knows she was a fool to dream of such a thing. The Archduke draws his sword from its sheath, and he says that it seems they still don't understand where they made a mistake and don't even repent. After which he already swings at these two, and the young lady asks Khalid to stop. The guy then says that because of these two, the young lady suffered, and isn't this the best retribution for all their deeds? However, the main character claims that she does not want to punish them like that, after which the guy asks what she means. But the girl claims that she does not intend to respond to them with the same cruelty with which they treated her, and if she does that, she'll be no better than them. The Archduke then says that's quite fair, and he's so stained with red liquid that it's enough for both of them, and she shouldn't burden herself with guilt about it. After which he wounds the young lady's brother, and the main character asks, a little surprised, what he is doing, and she tells him not to do this, because he promised to obey her. Riddle is a little surprised after this, and the girl claims that this means that everything he does is done with her will in mind, and asks how she can avoid feeling guilty after this, but not for them, but for Khalid, as if she forced him to do it. The guy then claims that he can't allow the girl to feel guilty, and he understood. A little while later, the young lady's brother and father screamed for release. Ethan, looking at them, asks His Highness what they should do with them. The man replies that they are traitors and have attempted to rebel against the Emperor, and His Majesty has asked him to lock them in prison and keep a close eye on them. The Archduke's confidant then agrees, and he tells the guards to take them away. The young lady's father then screams that this is ridiculous and that they should let him go, and his son screams that they can't do that. The Archduke then turns to his wife and asks how she wants to punish them. The girl replies that she wants to take away from them what they value most, and the man asks if they value anything. It's hard to believe. The girl then claims it's the Duke and his family. They love only themselves and their lineage. This is the only important thing for them, because they know that it is she who gives them everything: power, wealth, and status. And now that the attempted rebellion has been confirmed, then the Emperor will take away all the titles and wealth from the Biertmich family, and the guy replies that yes, but that's not all, because they will be executed. The main character then asks if he can ask the Emperor for a favor, after which he asks what his wife wants. And the girl claims that after Togo, her father and brothers will be removed from power. She wants them reduced to the level of commoners. She also understands that when they fall into eternal sleep, everything will be forgotten. But she wants them to suffer like she does every single day, and to live like the poorest people. Even worse than a pathetic, illegitimate child. The girl then asks how difficult it will be to accomplish. The Archduke notes that of course not, and he promised her that he would fulfill everything she wished for. And he'll do this so the young lady can rest easy. He also wonders what it's like to know the past has been rectified and that her life is no longer in danger. And nothing more, and no one will hurt her, and they will be together forever. After which the two kiss, and the young lady wonders if it is all over and if her terrible past and the terrible plunge into eternal sleep that she had to endure have actually already passed. Several days have passed since Duke Betrich and Keith were arrested. As for her goals of surviving in her new life, she has finally achieved it and no longer has to fear being put into a crippling sleep. The girl feels relieved, but for some reason there is still emptiness inside. At this time, someone cries out to Her Highness, and the main character asks Elsa what happened. The girl then only wonders what is going on there and asks her what she means. The maid then says that the Duke and the young master have news that these despicable people were secretly planning treason. The main character says that yes, and Elsa heard the news, but the girl asks why the lady doesn't look surprised. After all, she thought she'd be shocked. The main character claims there's nothing surprising about it. She also understands that, in fact, she and Khalid were the first to know about everything, and she even witnessed it, how they were arrested and dragged away, and besides, she'd already been through a lot of trauma planning this trap. At this time, the maid turns to Her Highness and asks if she is sure that she is okay. And the girl replies that at first she was a little surprised, but now she feels well, and the maid says that she is glad to hear this, but was also a little worried that this news could frighten her. And to be honest, she always knew that these people were going to do something like this one day, and they mean that they are too greedy, so it is impossible not to notice. The main character then realizes that she believes Elsa also harbored anger towards them. After which she asks how her father and brother are doing, and the girl replies that when she asked about the knights guarding the dungeon, they said their angry cries could be heard even outside. Well then Elsa says Her Highness should wait a little, and she's not going to visit them, but what if they try to hurt her? They never regretted what they did, but the main character claims that she still has to see them with her own eyes, and understands that she would personally like to see their demise. After all, she'd been waiting for this moment for quite some time. A little while later, the girl was already approaching the dungeon, and the knight was inquisitive. Could he ask what brought Her Highness there if she was lost? However, the protagonist replies that she came there on purpose. The girl also understands that despite Elsa's words, it is quite quiet there, and enough time has passed since their arrest, so she thinks that they are just tired. The young lady also says that she came there to see the traitors, to which the knight is a little surprised. But then he claims that they are there, and asks to be allowed to accompany Her Highness, but the girl claims that this is not necessary, because in the end they are in front of the castle, and she only needs a minute to talk to them, so she can handle it on her own. After which the young lady goes there, and the knight states that if she says so, then let Her Highness not doubt and let them know if she needs them, but the girl replies that there is no need to worry because she will return soon. After which the young lady enters the basement, and her brother asks if it's Idris. He then jumps up from his seat, and running up to the bars he screams and says that she's here. The girl then clenches her fists but thinks that everything is fine because he's behind bars. And the young man at this time tells Idris to look at this, cause yesterday's wound really hurts and doesn't it look terrible? The young lady then claims that it looks normal and wonders if it hurts him, but she believes that this means that he has the ability to feel pain. The guy then asks what she's talking about, and the girl claims that he always hurt her as if it meant nothing, so she simply assumed he himself was incapable of feeling pain. But then who else would approach a young lady and ask if she was happy now? After all, the girl turned the Archduke against them, and also sent her own father and brother, so he asks if she is happy. However, the main character just smiles, and claims that it's so funny to hear something like that from him. And wasn't he the one who planned to put her into eternal sleep? The man then asks what she's talking about, and the girl insists that maybe he hasn't thought about it yet. But if Khalid had refused his demand, he would have plunged her into a crippling sleep and let the man not deny it. The young lady's father then asks why she thinks he would do something like that, and the girl replies that it is because without this deal she would be useless to him, and isn't it his principle to get rid of things that he considers useless? However, after this, the man only laughs and says that this is how the girl imagines taking care of him. But if you think about it, they are not so different, and get rid of someone before he has a chance to cause harm first. This is indeed what he would do, and he always denied her existence due to her low origin. Therefore, I am sure that she was offended at him for this, but let the girl take a look now. Because of all his children, only she behaves just like him. The man also says that getting rid of him was the right decision after all, and that this is Beatrice's method of getting rid of useless cards in her hand. However, the girl then claims that he is wrong, because he is nothing more than a traitorous piece of human waste. And the only thing he can think about before his end is how to admit her to Beatrice. The girl also claims that there was not a single moment when she voluntarily wanted Beatrice, and he himself decided it for her. The young lady also asks if he thinks she would have ended up with him if she were a true Beatrice. And unlike him, she knows what kindness and generosity are. This small difference is what led him to this fate. That's why the girl asks if he really thinks she's the same, because that's not true at all, and he deserves to lose his life. At this moment, someone else enters the dungeon and addresses Idris. He asks her why she came there. The girl replies that she just wanted to talk to them one last time. Khalid Duke tells her not to get too close to those dirty criminals. And he also turns to the young lady's father and says that it would be better for him not to say anything unnecessary, and he also hopes that he is not so stupid as to hasten his own immersion into eternal sleep. The man then claims that the traitors will be executed anyway, and the Duke claims he would gladly behead them both right now. Well, as he knows Idris is much kinder than he is, and the man then asks what they are going to do. And the Archduke, with a grin on his face, asserts that from now on they will live like peasants. The blonde then asks in shock if they will really live like peasants, and also says that this cannot happen. He also says that it would be better to simply put them into a crippled sleep, because it is better for him to lose his life than to live like trash. The main character understands that they will have to learn that commoners and peasants are the same people as any nobleman, and the young lady's father then asks in shock if he will really be a peasant, after which he bursts out laughing. A little while later, the young lady is already heading to the estate with her husband, and the brunette claims that he didn't want the girl to see that place. Their main character asks why. The guy replies that he wants to show her only good things, and the girl says that's how it is. The main character also says that he shouldn't worry because she's completely fine, and the brunette insists that her life is now safe. The main character can't help but smile. She also thanks Khalid for everything he's done for her. He also claims he delivered the message to the emperor instead of being executed. He asked that Beatrice be stripped of all her wealth and titles since the plan was his. And if her family is the traitor, then the emperor sent confirmation, and he will fulfill this request. Soon the prisoners will return to their homeland to suffer their punishment, and the main character says that she understands. The girl also understands that the Duke's words remained firmly in her memory, and the man claimed that she assumed that he would put her into a crippling sleep, but she was wrong. The young lady can't stop thinking about what he said and wonders if she's missing something. At this time, the Archduke asks the girl if something has happened and if something is bothering her. The main character, with a smile on her face, replies that nothing, and she thinks she's just a little tired. The young lady understands that she should not worry about this, and, besides, all the evidence points to the Duke's guilt. And she can no longer waste precious time on a foggy future, so she should enjoy today, and she was sure she'd feel better after a breath of fresh air. A few days later, the Imperial Knights arrived. The Emperor announced that as soon as the Duke and Kate returned to the Empire, their property would be confiscated, their status as aristocrats would be revoked, and the traitors would become simple peasants. The protagonist realizes that their insignificant departure had nothing in common with the luxurious arrival they enjoyed a few days earlier on their way to the Archduke's palace. Everyone then whispers and claims that these are the same criminals who tried to hide the Emperor and say that they mocked the Archduchess in the past. But what kind of terrible people are these that are now screaming that God will punish them and let them go to hell? Then someone else approaches the young lady and states that he believes they will pay for their sins. It turns out to be Ethan, and he claims that he is glad to see that they will get what they deserve, because it is so annoying to see people acting so arrogant while there. The girl understands that the Duke was expelled in front of the entire aristocracy and His Majesty approved, that at the request of the Archduke and Archduchess who helped them uncover their crimes, they will not be executed. Instead, he orders Beatrice's family to be stripped of their titles and property, and also to demote the Duke and his sons to the lowest class of commoners. He also asked if there were any objections, but the people merely asserted that it was only through the mercy of the Archduke and Archduchess that the traitors were allowed to spare their miserable lives. So they should be grateful. As soon as they left the palace in disgrace, the jeers of other aristocrats could be heard even on the other side of town, and the Duke, Ken, and Kate were thrown into the street, looking no better than beggars in back alleys. The man then looked at the bird and claimed that it would be better to plunge into eternal sleep than this. The Archduke then turns to the young lady and says that it has gotten a little colder, so they should come in. However, the girl asks if they can visit her mother first. Ethan then claims that he just visited her, and the woman feels great. Then the main character asks if it's okay if she's brought to the palace today. The Archduke then replies that, of course, and he will ask Ethan to accompany her, after which he turns to his confidant and asks if he understands. If that's the case, then let him go right now and try to treat her with the utmost respect. The young man then says that the Archduke isn't giving him a second to rest. The main character, with a smile on her face, says she's counting on Ethan. The guy then says that he too will certainly treat the lady with due respect. The girl then says she hopes her mother will like Kaltis. The Archduke tells the young lady not to worry, as her mother will want for nothing, and he's sure she'll like the place. The woman is in the room at this time and understands that despite the fact that she is the mother of the Archduchess, she has always been treated disrespectfully because she was born a servant. And because of that, she expected to live in one of the old estates of the Archduke, and also thought that it would be one of those places that were only called estates. But from the outside, everything looked decent, but the woman was sure that everything was destroyed inside. She also thought that everything was okay, because in any case, it would be better than when she spent every day afraid to show even a drop of weakness. She also opens a locket containing a photograph of her daughter and realizes that she can live with Idris if she can suppress her pride. The woman was afraid to get close to Idris since this family hated her, and she realized that her existence would only bring her pain. But she missed her daughter very much, and cannot believe that she will be with her again. Of course, only if the Archduke's intentions were pure. The woman also understood that he was trying to keep her close, because she was Idris's weakness. And he wants to lock her up and also restrict her mother, and perhaps others cannot lift a finger in her direction. The new Archduke himself has the power to destroy her whenever he wishes. Well then, the woman remembered how the main character asked her to go with her, and claimed that she was waiting for the day when she could free her mother. The girl also told her not to worry, because now it was Khalid, and she would take care of everything. But when the woman opens the door, she's shocked to think what it is. Meanwhile, the servants greet her. They also claim that they were expecting her on the orders of His Highness, and that the lady must have had an exhausting trip. The woman then realized that she thought she would be locked in an abandoned house, but she wondered if all these people were there to watch her, and most likely the Archduke was warning her to behave quietly. At this time, the head maid greets the mistress and states that it is an honor for them to be assigned to such an important person. She also claimed that His Highness ordered them to serve her in the best possible way, as she was a very special guest, and the woman also asked how they could address a lady. The young lady's mother said they could call her Honey, and the maid said they would do as she said. Now she understands that everyone is so polite to her, and that they are really there to keep an eye on her, but in any case, she must be on guard. At this point, someone asks if his colleague has heard the news, and knows about the aristocrats being brought from the Empire. The woman then looked out into the hallway and asked if something was wrong. One of the maids apologized, claiming they had been talking too loudly, after which she told the lady what these rumors were, and the young lady's mother was shocked. Could it be that Beatrice's family had been exiled and reduced to peasant status? She also wondered if Idris had known about it, and that was why she had sent her there. At this point, one of the servants approaches the woman and says that this is where Lady Hanny is. He then claims to be an assistant to the Archduke named Ethan Sorwell. The Archduke and Archduchess wished her to return to the palace, and he would accompany her there. The main character is a little nervous at this time and wonders if her mother will arrive safely. At this time, the Archduke turns to her and tells the girl to look there because Ethan is already on his way. The main character then says that she is so glad that they returned safe and sound. After which, Ethan gets out of the carriage and also turns to Her Highness and affirms that he brought Lady Hanny as she ordered. The main character is silent for a moment and looks at her mother. after which he starts crying and hugs her. The woman is a little surprised, but still smiles. A short time later, the Archduke asks the woman if anything caused her discomfort while living at the estate. She replies that nothing at all, thanks him, and claims she felt very comfortable. She also apologizes to His Highness and states that her stay was infinitely comfortable, and she humbly thanks him for his generosity. Idris then says that given how long they had been apart, she already felt a certain distance between them, but when she addresses her like this, their relationship seems completely cold to her. Therefore, the main character says that there is no need to speak so formally, but the woman replies that no, and she cannot allow herself to do so. That would be absurd. The main character also thinks her mother understands that she's currently in a precarious position and she must have noticed the servants' awkward behavior. She also understands that if she's not careful, she could end up worse off in this house than when she lived with the Duke. After which she says that since Togo's mother wants it, she cannot force her. However, the Archduke comes closer and claims that after so many events, he will finally be able to greet her properly. And he says what a relief it is to hear that she was satisfied with her stay at the estate. It's truly an honor for him to meet her. The protagonist then realizes that after Khalid showed such respect to her mother, she's already honored. The maids will have no choice but to follow his example. The woman, meanwhile, insists that all this is thanks to His Highness's mercy, and she regrets that she cannot repay his kindness. At this point, the Archduke takes the young lady by the hand, and the girl then whispers her thanks to him, but the young lady's mother turns to His Highness, and he asks why he is respectful to such a modest woman like her, and she is grateful to him, but there is no need for this. The Archduke then takes the young lady's mother's hand in his own and kisses it. He also asserts that she is, after all, the only mother of his wife, the Archduchess. So he asks the woman not to belittle herself. The protagonist, meanwhile, thinks what a relief this is, and now no one in Kaltes will dare to disrespect her mother. The woman, meanwhile, only sighs, thinking that it's hard for her to accept everything that's happened over the past 2 days, and wondering if everything will be okay. At this time, the Archduke orders a welcoming dinner to be prepared, and a little while later they are already sitting at the table. And Khalid says that the journey to Kaltes must have been long, and she must be tired. Spending a long time in his modest estate must be tiring, so he prepared many dishes to give her strength, and hoped that they would be to her taste. The woman then asks if this estate is really modest, and claims that it is not so, because the estate was not only very spacious, but also elegant and beautiful. The main character then says that she is glad to hear that her mother liked Kaltes, after which she asks her to help herself before the food gets cold, because their chef is very skilled. The woman then thanks her, but when she puts a piece of meat in her mouth, she is very surprised and thinks how delicious it is. Then she also looks at her daughter and sees how the Archduke feeds her, after which they even knock glasses together. And when the main character looks at her mother, she sees that she is surprised, and the girl understands that she has become so accustomed to this in her new life, that she completely forgot about her mother, and now she is only embarrassed. And the woman at this time is thinking, isn't this guy the one they call a tyrant? At this time, the main character thanks Khalid and says that she can handle it herself and that she can eat herself. The girl then wonders, a little embarrassed, whether her mother saw how Khalid fed her. At this time, Khalid turns to the young lady and asks why she suddenly started fussing about the girl, thinking that her mother saw everything. The Archduke then claims that he feeds her every day and does not understand why she is so embarrassed now. The main character then wonders if he's doing this on purpose and is simply teasing her. Meanwhile, the woman says she's so pleased to see how well they get along. Idris thanks her, but after that, silence hangs between them, and the young lady only puts food in her mouth. And she also wishes her mother bon appetit. A little while later, she's already heading down the hall with her mother. Their woman claims that, frankly, she was surprised, and the young lady asks what she's talking about. After which, the young lady's mother claims that she had not said this before, but the news that Her Highness was marrying the Archduke saddened her. And the girl was literally forced to do this, so she was sure that she would be doomed to an unhappy life like her. Not to mention the rumors surrounding His Highness. The main character then thinks it's no wonder her mother had such an impression. In her past life, she also considered herself unlucky. The woman claims that she is now convinced that she was wrong and that it's true what they say, You shouldn't trust rumors. She also wonders why her mother fell in love with the Archduke. The main character then turns to her mother, a little surprised, and she only asserts that it is obvious that His Highness values her very much. After all, even from her, who is a stranger, this did not hide. And she's happy knowing that everything is fine with them. Idris then wonders if it's her mother. She was worried about her the whole time. Then the girl approaches her mother and hugs her. She also claims to have missed her too. They then approach the woman's room, and the young lady says that this is her room today. The young lady's mother is then a little surprised, and claims that even the room in the estate seemed too luxurious for her. And it's just wonderful there, so she thanks Her Highness, and the main character says that she's glad to hear that she likes it. After which the girl turns around and says that perhaps she will go then and wishes her mother good night. The woman also wishes Her Highness good night, and the main character goes out into the corridor. But then he's a little surprised and wonders what Elsa is doing there. When the hospital attendant sees Her Highness, she immediately turns to her. The main character then asks what happened, and the maid only asks if she liked the dinner, to which the main character replies that yes, and she is very happy with everything. She also claims that her mother had dinner with her, and the maid says that she knew it, and thank God everything is fine. After all, it had been so long since she had seen Lady Hanny that she was worried about how their reunion would go. The main character then says that the girl should meet her tomorrow, since she herself hasn't seen her for a long time, and she's sure her mother misses Elsa. The maid then asks if this is true and thanks Her Highness. But then she also turns to the lady and asks what she thinks about the idea of going for a walk with Lady Hanny. The delight workers would have told her that she had not had the opportunity to look around in Kaltis. The main character then says that it's true, and maybe she should give her something at the same time. Elsa says that's a great idea. Then the Archduke enters the room, and the maid says that he is here too, after which he asks her to forgive him. The man then closes the door and asks what they were talking about, and the main character replies that Elsa offered to give her mother a short tour of Kaltis. The Archduke replies that he agrees and that it is a wonderful idea, since it has not come to light for a long time. The young lady then says yes, and thanks Khalid for his actions earlier, as he helped strengthen her mother's position there. And she is really very grateful for this, but the Archduke says that he did nothing special, and there is nothing to thank him for. In any case, it would have been necessary to do their word. He is sorry. But he won't be able to keep them company tomorrow because he has unfinished business. Their main character says that she understands. And the guy claims that then he will send Ethan and the knights to accompany them. The young lady then asks, a little surprised, if Ethan is my assistant and if she is the Archduchess. But she thinks that taking his only assistant for a walk is still unnecessary. However, the man then asks to take the guy with him because he is not only an assistant, but he is also a wonderful swordsman, and if something happens, he is able to protect them. The main character realizes that now that she thinks about it, Ethan often goes with the knights. And given Khalid's words, he must truly be a talented warrior. The Archduke asserts at this time that even though the assassin who harmed her more isn't a threat, he still wants to protect her, and that's his duty. The main character then says that's fine, and she'll listen to him. The guy says that's great, and if she wants to buy something, she should put it in his name because he'll pay for everything. The young lady is a little surprised and says no. However, the guy is only interested in why their girlfriend claims that it's not even her money and she can't spend it on herself. Who is she to throw his money around? However, the guy insists he doesn't care how much she spends, so let her do with it as she pleases. And besides, the internal affairs of the family are the wife's responsibility, including taking care of finances. Well, the girl then claims that she had never done this before, and it was not because he could not trust her with anything, because she always thought that this is why he did everything alone. The guy then asks how he could even think like that. But he did do that so that she wouldn't be overloaded with work and everything would be just for her comfort, so he's surprised that she took it that way. The main character is then a little surprised and asks what he is talking about. The guy asks why, in her opinion, he tried so hard to become rich. But it was because he wanted her to be able to buy whatever her heart desired. Khalid claims that they have plenty of money, so she shouldn't be shy about spending it on herself. Well, the young lady claims that she cannot and does not even know how to manage money properly. However, the man only comes closer to her and says that this won't do. The young lady is a little surprised and asks what he means, and the guy claims that from now on she is obliged to spend 5,000 gold a day and this is his order. The young lady then asks if it is really that much, and realizes that for that money she could open a small store in the capital of the empire. After which she screams that she will never be able to spend such a sum in one day. And what will happen if they go broke, however? The guys claim that he would not be Albert if they could go broke so easily. And this will not happen, so let the girl feel free to use them every day. And he will check. The next day, the girl is already in the city. He asks Mom if she liked breakfast. The woman replies that she did, and that it was too good for her. And the main character claims that she did say that there was no need to be so modest anymore. After which, she suggests they take a stroll today and claims she thought she'd like to explore Kaltis. The woman replies that she wasn't bored at all in the palace and thanks Her Highness. The main character realizes that she is not sure that she will be able to spend all 5,000 gold in a day, as Khalid said. But today she'll still have to spend a little. The coachman asks where the lady wishes to go, and the girl replies, to Madame Redmond's shop. A short time later, the woman greets Her Highness and asks how she can help them today. The girl replies that she would like to pick out some outfits for her mother. The woman insists that they'll start with measurements, after which they measure the young lady's mother and ask if she'd like a particular design. The woman apologizes, but claims she's not very knowledgeable about fashion. However, the main character, just like the Duke, extends her hand and tells them to stop and also asks to bring all the dresses in her mother's size. The woman then says that they will do as Her Highness wishes, and when they finally bring these dresses, the girl points to one of them and also states that from there and to there, they'll take them all. The boutique owner is shocked after this. Meanwhile, the young lady's mother turns to Her Highness and says, there's no need. The main character says to register it all in the Duke's name, and they delivered everything to the palace. After which everyone was amazed and exclaimed that they obeyed Her Highness. The girl exited the boutique, then became embarrassed, and realized she'd always wanted to try doing what Khalid did. She also recalls how the man insisted they pack everything from there to there, but now the girl thinks she's embarrassed. At that moment, someone turns to Her Highness and asks if she's sure about that, and also asks what if the Archduke gets angry because of such extravagance, because one dress would be more than enough for her. However, the main character turns to her mother and tells her not to worry, because it's actually the opposite. And Khalid himself wants her to spend as much as possible, so she offers to buy her more accessories. Afterwards, they go to a jewelry store. The worker there claims that their visit is an honor for her, after which she asks them to come in and also claims that as soon as the rest of them come, they will lay out the best goods for them. And they don't have to rush to examine everything carefully. And if they have any questions, they shouldn't hesitate to ask them. Looking at all this jewelry, the main character realizes she's never seen a moonstone sparkle so elegantly. But it's all masterful work, and all these decorations are so beautiful that she can't stop looking. The girl then declares that they are all beautiful, and the women are glad to know that they liked Her Highness. The main character then turns to her mother and asks what's wrong with her. But the woman doesn't answer, only staring at the jewelry. After which, the main character approaches her and asks if she really likes it. Hani claims it's so beautiful she can't take her eyes off it, after which the young lady says she'll take it. The store employee agrees and asks if Her Highness would like her to help her put it on. The girl replies that it's not for her, but for her mother, after which the jewelry is placed on the woman. And the main character says it suits her very well. The jewelry store employee also claims that Azari's tear has finally found its owner, and the woman looks stunning. She also asks if Her Highness has taken a closer look at anything else, and the young lady understands that she is not sure that what she bought with his money can be called a gift. She then points to one of the brooches and declares that she likes it. The girl realizes that the red matches Khalid's eyes. Meanwhile, the young lady's mother insists that the pin resembles the Archduke's eyes and that their color is pure yet very deep. The young lady then turns to her mother in shock and asks if she can read her mind. The woman only smiles and says no. It's just that she has that expression when she sees the Archduke. The main character then asks if she is really that obvious, and then someone thanks Her Highness for the visit, after which the young lady leaves the store. There, Ethan meets her and asks if Her Highness has finished shopping. The girl simply turns to the guy and asks if she can see him for a minute, after which he agrees. And the young lady pins a brooch to his suit and claims that it is a gift of gratitude for his kindness to her, and she wanted to express her appreciation. The boy then repeats the word kindness and says that of course, Her Highness is so kind to everyone, even to someone like him. The young man also clasps his hands, but then realizes he needs to calm down. He smiles, thanks the lady, and assures her that he will cherish it. The boy also asks if it's time for them to return to the castle, and tells the main character that she's glad he likes it, after which he suggests they return, as it's already getting dark. Meanwhile, the boy is thinking about the young lady, and realizes that she is smart, beautiful, and kind, so he wonders how he could not be devoted to her. A short time later, the young lady is already at the carriage and tells her mother that they should return to the palace. The woman then suggests doing just that, and the young lady insists there's plenty to see there too, and that the backyard garden is especially beautiful. The woman says that's fine, and she too wants to see it soon. And the young lady understands that if she thinks about it, what did Ethan mean then? After all, recalling those days when he said that even words of consolation can hurt some, she wondered what happened to him in the past. But the girl understands that the guy is an assistant whom Khalid trusts, and people who treat her well, so it is hard for her to realize that similar people suffered in the past. A short time later, they enter the garden, and the young lady's mother insists that it really is very beautiful there. The protagonist asks her mother if this is true, and insists that she wanted to come there with her. Ethan claims that this place was specially created for her by the Archduke, and the young lady's mother claims that this is incredible, and the man then smiles and says that this place belongs to Lady Idris and only her. The main character then tells Ethan not to say that, but he denies it, saying it's true because she was able to melt the Archduke's cold heart. The girl doesn't even know what to say, and her mother insists that the Archduke really is such a romantic. Ethan says that of course, and for Her Highness' sake, he's ready not only to create a garden but also to give her anything she wants, and there's not a single person working there who doesn't know this. At this point, the Archduke realizes his ears are burning and he needs to tell Ethan to take care of the office. The woman then turns to the Archduke's aide and asserts that this appears to be true. The young lady then replies that, in any case, mother can come there any time, after which the woman thanks her daughter. It was a wonderful, peaceful time, and if she could stop time, she would choose this moment. The flower petals, carried by the wind into the sky, seem to carry away all the bad moments of the past, and the young lady now thinks that this is what it means to be happy, after which she smiles sincerely and understands that this is what she thought. However, her mood was spoiled as soon as she saw a familiar face in the hallway, and now she realizes it was Harold Florent. She was on her way to the office to give the Khalid a gift when she encountered him. The young lady also recalls how he addressed her at the ball and realizes that this is someone she wouldn't want to date. The guy, meanwhile, only clenches his teeth, and he also greets Her Highness. The girl then replies yes and, turning around, says she's glad to see Florent. The young lady also thinks it would have been better if she had pretended not to know him and walked past. She hopes he's not planning to make a scene, since that's Khalid's territory. The young lady then turns to the young man and says he seems to be in a hurry, and if he has anything to say to her, she suggests postponing it until next time. The young man then turns to Her Highness and asks for permission to give her advice. The young lady then wonders what's gotten into him and asks if he has any complaints. The young man claims that she knows the Archduke has changed a lot since the wedding, and the young lady wonders what he means by that. The guy replies that after the girl appeared in his life, he began to poison her. And that's natural, since he spends all his time there and only surprises her with attention. Idris then asks what Togo says about the guy, saying he doesn't think it's a good thing. Because of this, the Archduke can't look after his lands. The main character then says that the guy is being rude, because he already knows how diligently the Archduke fulfills his duties, so she asks why he's telling her this. Gerald claims that his duties are to take care of Kaltis and let the girl look around, because all His Highness cares about now is her mother, and her problems. The main character understands that there are no problems with believing in the realm, and if there were, Ethan would have immediately found out about it, or Elsa would have mentioned it, because she is aware of all the rumors. The The herald then claims that the man used to work until late, but now, as soon as it gets dark, he immediately runs to her in peace, and this is nothing more than disregard for national affairs. But the main character then asks if he doesn't think it's too rude, because when night falls, he immediately comes to her, because she is his wife, and if the man isn't too arrogant towards the Archduchess. And he also says that he devotes less time to work, and the guy must have heard that His Highness recently caught the rebels. But she and her mother helped him with this, and the guy is spreading all sorts of gossip without really knowing anything. She also claims that this went beyond the borders of Kaltes and was a threat of national proportions, so the young lady asks if he also considers this to be disregard for the affairs of the nation. The young man then apologizes if he spoiled Her Highness's mood, but he would like her to think about how she influences him, after which the guy turns around and leaves. The main character then wonders if she's truly a burden to the Archduke. She then looks at the box in her hands containing the gift for him, but still turns and heads toward her room. A short time later, the young lady is already lying in her bed, remembering the guy's words about the Archduke changing so much after the wedding. The girl realizes that Harold just attacked her and left. But unlike the previous times, there is some truth in his words now, and the girl understands that in some ways he is right, and also if you think about it, he probably spent a lot of time sorting out her family and helping her mother. He's been spending a lot of time with her lately, so she wonders if she really has a bad opinion of Khalid. And is it really because of her that he's failing to fulfill his responsibilities? Besides, was there ever a time when she could be of any use? The girl also understands that it is not her merit to plunge into eternal sleep and rise again, as well as to take revenge for her plunge into a crippled sleep and save her mother, and it was he who completely figured it out. So their relationship is one-sided, and while they may love each other, their abilities and strengths are diametrically opposed. And Harold, who is a third party. But the girl thinks that she has no choice but to admit that there is some truth in his words, so now the young lady only laughs sadly, but then puts her hand on her face, and she wonders what she should do. This night had been a test of her heart. A little while later, the girl gets up from the table and says she's eaten, so she'll probably go. However, the guy grabs her hand and asks if something is wrong. Idris replies that no, everything is fine, and also asks why he's asking. The guy then simply tells her to let her know if she needs anything. Well then, someone turns to His Highness and asks if he has finished his meal, because he urgently needs to hand over important documents that require his attention. The man then turns to the servant, rises from his seat, and tells Idris to be sure to tell him. The girl then looks at him and realizes that it's true, and he's always so busy. And for the last few days, she tried to keep her distance from him so as not to interfere, and this was her personal decision, but the girl wonders why it hurts so much. But she just hopes that Khalid won't notice. The Archduke realizes at this point that Idris seems to be avoiding even talking to him. A short time ago, the boy suggested they take a walk and claimed he didn't think he'd been spending enough time with her lately. However, the girl only said that he was so busy, so she suggested doing it some other time, and the girl stopped coming to his office because it was as if she didn't want to meet with him at all, but what bothered him most was that Ethan had asked him to accompany them on walks, and it seemed Idris was starting to warm up to him. He'd even seen them together in the hallway a while back. The girl had said he seemed busy, and that he should tell her if it was because of her, because she was worried. The young man simply smiled and insisted that he was working for the well-being of Kaltes, and how could that be a burden? Afterward, the young lady thanked him, and the Archduke realized that he was deeply irritated by her concern for him, and he wonders why the girl acts differently around him and why she laughs so much when she's with him. The girl also said that Ethan did a good job and that she knows a good tea that helps relieve fatigue, so she'll send him some. The young man then thanked the young lady and said that she was so kind, and the Archduke, overhearing this, thought how this infuriated him, after which he approached the two, and they became a little scared. Khalid then turned to Ethan and said he'd been wondering why he wasn't in his office. After all, the guy had so much free time to hang around there. The main character then turned to the Archduke, and she said that she was simply talking to him about her request, and the man said that it was clear and also understood what it meant that she asked him for something, but he didn't know anything about it. After which, the man simply turned around and said it was time for them to go, and the confidant merely agreed. The main character only hoped he hadn't noticed. The Archduke then brought the young man into his office, and Ethan asked what had upset the Archduke so much. However, the man only glared at his charge and asked what he was talking about. The guy replies that it's nothing, after which the man asks if Ethan has a girlfriend, as he's never seen the brooch before. The Archduke's confidant then considers whether he should tell him, and he claims the Archduchess gave it to him. The man then simply exclaimed, asking why she gave it to him. The knight claims she simply said he had done a good job at Kaltis. He heard that she bought him a gift, and now he wonders if the Archduke hasn't received it. He's sure there was a gift for his master too, but now, when he looks at it, he wonders if he really hasn't received anything yet. The Archduke is simply curious as to whether Idris has suddenly decided to buy Ethan a gift. He also wonders if the boy actually received the gift, while he hasn't, and is now deeply upset. The Archduke's confidant insists it's simply a small reward from a superior. There's no hidden meaning there either. He's also confident that his gift is much better, and thinks the Archduke will receive it very soon. However, his master then replies that it isn't, and rises from his desk. She also approaches Ethan and asks why he was given it earlier. He understands that Idris always comes first for him, and his world revolves around her, so it hurts him to realize that he's not her number one. It's not enough for them to be so close, but she also gave him a brooch. The Archduke now claims he sent Ethan to assist the young lady in everything and protect her, but he apparently settled in perfectly and apparently received a gift. The young man doesn't even know what to say after this. The Archduke grabs him by the brooch and tells him he can wear it. He's not against it since it's Idris's wish, but let the boy at least take it off in front of him. Ethan, shocked, wonders what that expression on the Archduke's face really means, that he's jealous now. A little while later, the man is already thinking about how Idris gave Ethan the brooch, and he's wondering why she did it, and whether she was really just grateful. But then the brunette wonders what he's been thinking about, and realizes they've barely seen each other lately. The main character merely sighs heavily, and Elsa turns to Her Highness and asks if something has happened. The main character replies that she wanted to say that everything is fine, but probably everything is already visible on her. However, now she is not ready to talk about it and apologizes to the maid. The girl understands that her heart is so heavy because she herself puts up barriers between her and Khalid, and if only she could speed up the flow of time. The girl also understands that she loves him, but she needs to sort everything out, so she can't be with him now even if she really wants to, and if she is nearby, she will only become a burden. And his burden will only get heavier, so no one is to blame. Except her. The girl also clenches her fists, and thinks that in order to get closer to him, she needs to be worthy of him. And from now on, she will live only by her own wits and will not act on someone else's orders, so she just needs to be patient, no matter how bored she gets. At this time, the aristocrats are in the Archduke's office. Brunei claims that he heard that taxes on the Florentine lands had risen sharply, and that they were sending materials that would have been enough for domestic water supply. And he even invested a lot of money in this. The Archduke is speaking to a man who's a little shaky, but the Archduke merely addresses him menacingly and asks why he brought this report. He also says how pathetic he is, and that he gave him a task, after which the man asks if he succeeded. Harold then apologizes and asks for a little more time, but the Archduke says that not only is he incompetent, but he also dares to ask him for something, and he'll have to punish him. It's nighttime, so let the boy go. The young man then asks the Archduke not to do this. However, the man simply says that's enough and let the next one come. He also wonders if the others have nothing else to say, and if so, they'll be done for today. At that moment, the aristocrats rush out of the office, and one of them claims His Highness has been getting angry a lot lately. Another says he too thought the man would soften with the Archduchess's arrival. Still another asks if something has happened, since he's becoming more and more afraid of going there each time. Ethan, hearing all this, wonders if something bad has happened. But if you think about it, he and his wife hardly ever cross paths, and it seems like something happened between them, so it means he needs to devote more time to the Archduchess. The brunette suddenly rises from the table, startling the boy. He then insists he's going to practice and that Ethan shouldn't follow him. The young man then agrees. but the Archduke simply slams the door. The boy then realizes that something serious has happened and he needs to talk to the Archduchess. And she's so kind. Meanwhile, the knights on the training grounds greet the Duke. The man insists he's just there to practice, so they shouldn't pay attention and continue doing their own thing. Then he takes out his ball and begins practicing. The Archduke also understands that no matter how much he trains, Idris does not leave his head, and he wants to understand why she acts this way, as well as what she thinks about, and maybe she no longer loves him, and her feelings had cooled. Then the man recalls how good they were together, and how the girl claimed that all she wanted was for Khalid to be by her side. So now the Archduke simply insists that he must see her. Meanwhile, the main character walks down the hallway with the maid, and asks if the young man has accepted the girl's feelings. Elsa claims that as soon as he heard this, he immediately ran to the kitchen. At this point, someone approaches the young lady and claims to have finally found the Archduchess. The protagonist then asks if Ethan was looking for her and if something really happened. He simply looks at the maid and replies that he was. He also wanted to ask her himself. Elsa immediately realizes she should leave and claims Lily asked for advice, so she tells the Archduchess she'll go. Idris says fine, and then she'll tell you how it all ended. She also turns to the Archduke's confidant and says it seems to be something important. The young man replies that it's nothing serious and he simply didn't want anyone else to hear it. The young lady then asks what exactly, and the guy suggests they talk in the backyard garden, as he thinks there will definitely be no prying ears there. A short time later, they're already there, and the girl asks what he wanted to say. The young man then claims that the question may seem a little rude, and the girl tells him to ask because everything is fine. She understands that she thought she and Ethan were close enough, but she also wonders what kind of topic it is that makes him so cautious. The young man then asks if the lady had accidentally quarreled with the Archduke. The girl realizes that Ethan is the Archduke's assistant, and even if he does, Khalid must have already suspected something. After which, the young lady simply turns away and claims nothing happened. But then she insists she'll be honest, and that the problem is hers. The guy then asks what she's talking about, and if there's something she's unhappy with. The main character asks if he remembers that she recently asked him to explain all the intricacies of running an internal affairs department. The guy claims that if she's talking about merging Beatrice's property with... However, the girl interrupts him and claims that this is only a superficial reason and that she's been thinking about it for the past few days. Does she really deserve to be someone like the Archduke? Meanwhile, the brunette is wandering around looking for Idris, and one of the maids claims that the mistress went into the garden with Ethan Sorwell. The young woman claims she realized she's a bad influence on him, since all she can do is receive without giving anything in return. The guy then asks her what she's talking about, since she can't possibly be saying anything. The Archduke turns to the maid and asks if they're alone. The young lady claims that's why she wanted to learn how to manage domestic affairs, and she wants to become an archduchess worthy of him. The Archduke, meanwhile, heads into the garden, wondering if they're really alone together, and what Idris has in mind. The young lady claims she's scared, and that Khalid can't concentrate on his duties because of her. Ethan is silent for a moment, but then he grits his teeth and realizes that the lady is so kind and friendly, after which the young man approaches her and asks why she thinks so, because it is not so, and her mere presence helps him a lot. The guy also wonders why she belongs to a demon like Khalid. The girl, however, insists that to be useful, she should keep her distance for now. But she misses him so much. Ethan then puts his hands on the young lady's shoulders and insists that he doesn't know what made her think that way, but he sees that she's having a hard time and that she can cry because he's the one. However, at that very moment, someone shouts the name Idris, and when the guy turns around, he sees that it is Khalid. The brunette at this time turns to Ethan Sorwell and claims that he is the assistant he trusted the most. And she also asks if he really decided to encroach on the most valuable thing he has, after which she tells the guy to quickly remove his hands and asks what he was doing there. The blonde then realizes that the gentleman will definitely put him into a crippling sleep, but claims there was a misunderstanding. The main character then turns to Khalid and says no. However, he only turns to Idris and asks why, but the girl claims that this is true and Ethan was just trying to support her, so she asks him not to do this. The man then lowers his sword and turns around, leaving. He also tells Ethan not to try anything like that again unless he wants to fall into eternal sleep. The main character then, with tears in her eyes, tells Khalid that everything is wrong and understands that if the guy like that leaves, they will no longer be able to laugh like before and touch each other and tell each other their secrets. And all because of her, and also because of her stupidity, she kept him at a distance, and now she claims that she doesn't want that. At this time, Ethan turns to the Archduchess and says that she needs to quickly go after the master, because he is so angry because he values her very much. The girl then understands that she needs to run, after which she sets off on her journey and understands that she will no longer doubt in order not to lose precious happy moments. After which the young lady immediately hugs the Archduke and realizes that she wants to be near him. The girl then turns to her beloved and insists that it's truly a misunderstanding. Khalid replies that he knows there's nothing between them because she's not that kind of person. However, the girl claims that in order to be useful, she needs to keep her distance for now, and she claims that this whole situation is a complete misunderstanding, because this is not what she meant. The man then asks why she didn't tell him then, and the girl replies that she was afraid of becoming a burden and that he has many responsibilities at Kaltes, and she was worried that she was distracting him from his work. She also knows that many there dislike her, and is afraid that this could negatively affect him as well. The Archduke only laughs nervously after this. And then, with tears in his eyes, he asks who the hell dared to tell her such nonsense. Because let her tell him who it was, and he will make sure he never dares even come near her again. The girl replies that everyone thinks so and that she loves Khalid, but even she understands that she's unworthy of him for that reason. The young man then compliments her and asks if that's why she's been avoiding her, to which the girl replies yes. But she regrets it and has already regretted 1,000 times that she started behaving this way, and now when he simply turned his back on her, she realized that she did the wrong thing from the start. The Archduke then hugs the young lady and says that everything is okay, and he also understands that she is his wife, so the mere thought of her being treated like this breaks his heart. The guy also claims that her very existence is his meaning in life, and to see her, as well as to touch and hear her voice, is all he lives for, and she is his everything. Therefore, now the young man asks her not to think like that if she does not want to push him away intentionally. The girl replies that she never will, and she is sure that she will never want this and will not think about it anymore. The Archduke will then leave her this time to be near and never leave him, after which the young lady says that she will never leave him. A little while later, the man is already looking at the papers and asks if she herself had looked at all these projects. The girl replies that she just wanted to learn a little, and that these are projects for budget allocation for next year. We then say it's incredible, and there's no need to think about them anymore, and his wife is such a great person. He also claims that now they can be together for a little while longer. The separation is already decided, and the young lady then says she has something for him. The girl also opens the chest of drawers, and she claims it's a small gift, and because she's worked herself up like a fool, she couldn't give it right away. The Archduke then says she's not a fool. The girl hands him the box and tells him to open it, after which the man does so, and, looking at the red hairpin, thanks the young lady and also states that he will always wear it. The main character then says that she is glad that he liked her, and the man is only interested in how he could have liked a gift from his wife. The girl then claims that the brooch reminded her of his beautiful scarlet eyes, so she immediately bought it. The young man then asserts that he will take care of her gift, and a little while later, Ethan is already standing at the Archduke's door, and understands that he needs to get ready because he has an urgent report and he must gather up the courage and go in. The guy also thinks whether they have come to an agreement, after which he opens the door and goes to the Archduke. But he sees that these two get along well with each other, and Albert at this time turns to his wife and asks if she wants more. The girl then smiles and replies that no, and let him eat it himself. The brunette replies that he's content simply watching his wife adorably devour the treats. The main character then smiles and tells him to stop. Khalid, meanwhile, merely tells Idris to eat better. The knight then thanks God that everything is fine and then approaches the Archduke. And he claims that he has an urgent report for him, and the man asks if it is really that important. After which the confidant asserts that it seems so. And the Archduke asks, "What is there?" However, the guy only thinks that, apparently, everything has worked out, after which he wonders what he should do with the heir of the Florent family. After all, it seems his punishment is over, and the brunette only asks if the guy is talking about that fool, because, for now, he should not let him work with the budget. And this guy is too stupid, so he might lose his temper. After which he asks if he really stopped by to see them today. The knight replies that he did, and he's waiting for an audience to apologize. However, the Archduke tells him to leave and let the boy tell Harold not to wander around his territories without permission anymore.